Chapter 477. Grandfather is no longer my grandfather, Immerse said jealously as he looked at his wife. How many years has grandfather watched you? Right now, he only sees me as a novelty. But after the one in my stomach comes out, do you think he will still look at me in the eye? Tongning couldn't help but laugh. Plus, isn't it enough that you already have my love? Immerse did not respond. He simply placed a kiss on Tongning's forehead and hugged her to sleep. While in a daze, Tongning suddenly felt Immerse's body heat up. So, she quickly sat up and asked, "What's wrong?" Immerse leaned against the headboard and shook his head. "Don't worry about me. Hurry and sleep." In reality, Tongning knew that this man had been abstinent for a long time because of her. In the past, he didn't want it because he had never experienced such a feeling. But now that his wife was in his arms, he couldn't do anything. Any man would find it hard to endure. "Do you want me to help you?" "I don't want you to suffer," Immerse said with restraint. "Listen to me and go to sleep." "Actually, I've already spoken to the doctor. The baby has basically stabilized, so you don't need to endure so much," Tongning said in an incredibly gentle voice as she climbed onto Immerse's chest. "I can do it." Immerse closed his eyes like he was going through a final struggle. But thinking about the feeling of being one with his wife, he couldn't help but open his eyes. At this time, Tongning took the opportunity to nibble on his mole-covered earlobe. This time, her voice was filled with temptation. "I want you too." There was nothing more aphrodisiac than these words. Immerse also understood that he would never be able to leave Tongning in this lifetime. As the saying goes, after tasting the marrow, he yearns for more. Soon, the white nightgown was quietly thrown on the ground. In the darkness, two bodies intertwined with each other. Just like before, only when one reached the deepest part of each other would one know just how inseparable they were from each other. A few days later, Immerse left for the U.S. with his wife after handing over some matters at work. As Tongning was pregnant, Immerse was extra careful on this trip. He even hired over 10 bodyguards. No one could get close to Tongning. But they had no idea, because of this, Tongning ended up causing quite a bit of trouble. Some people would wonder if Tongning had started to look down on her fans just because she had a high status. However, this was something to be done after returning to China. To increase Taka's status, Taka's management agency released an advertisement stating that he was extremely popular in Asia. They claimed that Taka was so popular that even the most popular female artists in Beijing couldn't help but fall in love with him. This proved that over the years, with the continuous development of the film industry, people in the European and American industries were placing more and more emphasis on the Asian market. Every artist was trying their best to break new ground. Afterwards, The Lost Relative held its first promotional event in the US at HSD. On the day of the event, Taka's agency invited a large number of famous actors to the event. Tongning arrived at HSD a day early. Of course, for the sake of safety, Immerse personally arranged everything for her. This was American territory, so she had to be 120% vigilant and watch the whole process carefully tomorrow. Before this, Xia Yuling had given Tongning a phone call. But at that time, Tongning was resting, so Immerse picked up the phone instead. "Mom, it's Immerse." On the other end of the phone, Xia Yuling thought for a moment before saying, "Immerse, Tang Xian has been playing a lot of tricks in Tangkor lately. It seems she has found a way to deal with me and has been using the child to threaten me. I feel like her attitude is becoming more and more arrogant. For the sake of Xiao Ning's pregnancy, it's best that you don't reveal this matter to the public." "I've discussed this matter with Tongning, and we have the same plan." "That's good." Xia Yuling let out a sigh of relief. "Mom, do you need help?" "Not for now. I want to see how far she plans to go with the child. When it gets to the point where I can't take it anymore, I will tell your grandfather," Xia Yuling replied. "Does she want to gain status because of the child?" "That's impossible." Elder Tang's attitude is clear. He only wants the child, not the mother. Plus, even if Tang Xian wants to use the child, there's nothing she can do. After all, Xiao Ning is also pregnant. I was worried that Xiao Ning would be upset, so I called to remind you. Ning has my protection. Nothing will go wrong. Mom believes in you. Sometimes, I even feel like I owe you. You've taken such good care of Xiao Ning on my behalf. I must have done a lot of good deeds in my past life. After speaking, Xia Yuling felt she was being too emotional, so she quickly added, "Hurry and get some rest. I won't disturb you any longer." In reality, after hanging up the phone, Imo Ting stood by the window in deep thought. Tang Xian's matter was definitely not over. This woman was ruthless. He was afraid there would be no end to her troubles. But he had information on every single one of Tang Xian's prenatal checkups. If Tang Xian dared to mess around, he was going to make her regret it for the rest of her life. The next morning, Imo Ting's makeup team arrived at the hotel. As the promotional event was scheduled to start at 3 p.m., they needed to prepare in advance. Because of the Oriental trend, Tongning had once caused a stir in the U.S. So, today, when the makeup artist asked her what gown she wanted to wear, she replied in fluent English, "I've already prepared my own gown. It's in the suitcase. You guys handle it in a moment. I will wear it in the afternoon." The stylist opened the suitcase that Tongning was referring to. Inside was a light blue qipao. However, this qipao was not as simple as it seemed. On the left side of the qipao was a colorful phoenix embroidered on a silk thread, extending all the way to her stomach. The elegance of the dress made the stylist gasp in surprise. Of course, the reason why Tongning chose to wear it this way was because the phoenix tail was able to cover up her slightly protruding stomach. Tongning had prepared this gown behind Imo Ting's back. She had said that she wanted to help Elder Imo get back at him. As soon as Imo Ting saw the qipao, he shook his head and smiled helplessly. On this point, he and Elder Imo did indeed have different views. He only competed with the strong and didn't care about national boundaries. But since Tongning wanted to do this, then he would let her be. Plus, he wanted to make Elder Imo dote on her even more. His wife had always been smart, and this time was no exception. "It's perfect. I've never seen such a beautiful gown," the stylist exclaimed as she held the gown in her hands. The stylist held it in her hands as she praised, "Mrs. Imo, you will definitely be the center of attention, I swear." Tongning glanced at Imo Ting as the corners of her lips slowly curved upwards. "Of course." Chapter 478. To be honest, although Stupid had received good reviews in Europe and the US, Tongning was only a supporting character. Plus, her new film hadn't even been released yet, so it was normal for her to be ignored by the big names in the industry. But if it was someone else, they may have accepted the situation. But she was Tongning, the Tongning that never admitted defeat in any situation. 3 p.m., Western and American actors began to arrive at the hotel. At this time, Tongning's Rolls-Royce slowly came to a stop at the entrance. Afterwards, Imo Ting, dressed in a retro suit, stepped out of the car first. Because of his dignified appearance, he quickly attracted the attention of the reporters. However, Imo Ting ignored the reporters standing at the entrance. He walked around the back of the car, opened the door for Tongning and helped her out. "What's going on? Who is this? Have you never seen this woman before? I think she's Taka's co-star, the Asian woman." The American reporters spoke in English and expressed their doubts about Tongning's identity. But they couldn't be blamed for everything. The main purpose of the event was to promote Taka, so Taka's agency placed Tongning's name in an inconspicuous position. Even the poster only had Taka on it. So, the media only knew that Taka had gone to Asia to film, but they had no idea who his co-star was. After all, in their hearts, they did not have high hopes for Asian actors. Tongning's English was good, so she naturally knew what the people around her were talking about. But she did not show any stage fright. She simply hooked her arm around Imo Ting's as the couple entered the hotel together. The reporters had yet to realize that the woman standing in front of them was the Asian model that started the Oriental trend a year ago. Tongning did not remove her jacket as soon as she stepped out of the car because Imo Ting didn't allow it. He didn't want her to endure the cold. Only after the couple stepped into the hotel did Imo Ting help Tongning remove her jacket and hand it to a waiter. At this moment, a large group of guests had already gathered in the hotel. As the activities of the foreigners were relatively casual, the artists could choose their own style of activity. Tongning's appearance, of course, attracted the attention of a group of foreigners. Underneath her jacket was a qipao. Compared to the luxurious palace hotel, Tongning looked unique and elegant. Logically speaking, this was a European and American place, so it wasn't appropriate for Tongning to wear clothes like this. But the cheapao she was wearing surprisingly matched the luxurious surroundings. After all, apart from being an actress, there was also a model living inside her body. So, attracting attention was something she was very familiar with. At this time, in order to let her shine, Immerse naturally left her side and willingly became a supporting character. Even though he wasn't as low profile as he thought he was, this man was like a painting. It was impossible to ignore him. However, the strange thing was, he had his own brilliance and Tongning had her own uniqueness. The couple attracted the attention of all the foreigners present. Tongning understood what Immerse was thinking, so she hooked her arm around his and smiled gently. I can't live without you by my side. Immerse nodded his head before leading Tongning towards Taka. This Asian woman looks so familiar. What a beautiful dress. It's so unique. Which designer designed this? I've never liked Asian clothes because they are too complicated. But seeing this Asian woman wearing it today, I want to try it out. Oh my God, this is going to cause a new wave of Asian fashion. Discussions began to break out around them. The couple had caused quite a commotion. In the end, the couple approached Taka. Unlike his usual unruly self, Taka introduced his agency and team to Tongning in a serious manner. Taka, do these Asians speak English? Tongning smiled and replied naturally, of course. The man standing in front of Taka was stunned for a moment before he smiled. I am Taka's brother, Braun. I am also the boss of Global Agency. Hello, Mr. Braun. However, it seems you don't know who I am. Tongning replied straightforwardly. I am the female lead of The Lost Relative, Tongning. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were. Taka said he wanted to go to Asia, so I agreed to let him go to Beijing. But I don't care what he acts in. After all, Asian acting is only Huaso. The blonde American man named Braun expressed his disdain towards Tongning. You have a lot of celebrities, but to be honest, you don't have any actors. Hearing this, Tongning was not angry at all. She simply replied in fluent English. According to Mr. Braun, you have a lot of actors. Of course. There are at least 10 people present that have won international acting awards. This is a stage that you Asians will never be able to step onto. Really? Tongning asked. After looking around at her surroundings, she replied, apart from Jason, I don't know anyone else. Does Mr. Braun know what this means? It means that in the densely populated Asian region, no one remembers the faces that you mentioned. The only reason I know Jason is because he guest starred as a villain in one of our Asian films. In other words, the so-called good actors in your eyes, when they see the Asian market, kneel down in front of Prophet. Braun was stunned. He had never imagined that Downey's words would be so incisive. So, the good actors that you speak of can't even export their culture? Braun was speechless. I wonder if Mr. Braun has heard of a rule in South Korea? Tongning smiled confidently. She then continued, their country often exports third-rate products and leaves first-rate products for their own citizens to enjoy. I think this is probably a habit of the Asians, because it's the same in our country. The older generation of actors and artists are all inheriting our excellent culture. There's no need to please Europeans and Americans. Only third-rate actors like me need to go international. The funniest thing is, you Americans were once popular for a person that couldn't even be considered an actor. Braun's expression was extremely awkward from Tongning's counterattack. However, Tongning had no intention of stopping as she continued to refute Braun. Do you still remember the Oriental trend? How many people here have bought Oriental clothing or accessories for me back then? After hearing Tongning's words, a lot of people were surprised. After all, the Oriental trend had yet to end. Chapter 479. Braun didn't want to let Tongning embarrass him like this, so he retaliated. If your country really had actors, would they need a model like you to act? Faced with this difficult situation, Tongning continued to smile. Her tone was obviously gentle, but her words were filled with the determination to defend her country's actors. That's because our citizens are all talented. It's just that I am the most unpresentable type of person. Tongning dismissed herself as unpresentable, so her words were flawless. As a result, all the foreigners present were shocked. When did Asians become so crafty? Since when could a woman make a group of men fall silent? Brother, don't say that about Tongning. Her acting is really good. You will understand after watching the film. Taka saw the guests were a little embarrassed, so he quickly grabbed his brother and explained. Seeing that the guests were a little embarrassed, Taka quickly pulled his brother aside and explained, "She's really a very good actress. You can't disrespect my friend." Braun glanced at Tongning and then at his brother. In the end, he let go of his brother's hands and turned to leave. Taka sighed and smiled apologetically at Tongning. "Please believe me, today was just a misunderstanding." "It's okay," Tongning replied magnanimously. After all, she had the upper hand the entire time. Plus, they were on someone else's territory, so there was no need to be so aggressive. Soon, Taka helplessly turned around and left. Afterwards, the venue returned to normal and the event continued with Taka's team. However, because of what Tongning had just said, the other side no longer dared to look down on her. As a result, they treated her with utmost politeness throughout the entire event. During this time, someone even approached Tongning and pointed at Emoting. "This man is really interesting." "He is my manager," Tongning replied politely. "In that case, which agency is he from?" Tongning could tell that the other party was interested in Emoting, so she smiled and replied, "Sorry, apart from me, he will never be anyone else's manager. He is the CEO of Hai Rue and my husband." The other party was a little surprised as he raised his glass apologetically. This wasn't originally a large-scale event, but Tongning once again became famous in the U.S. Her and Braun's confrontation was secretly captured by a paparazzi that quickly made its way onto the most popular websites in the U.S. What kind of ability did an Asian woman have to attract the attention of the Americans time and time again? Apart from the cheongsam that she was wearing, which represented the culture of a big country, there was also the forceful counterattack that she had said to Braun. 1 year ago, she had changed the American people's perception of beauty. Today, she had changed the American people's perception of Asian actors again. Her words were enough to prove that the U.S. wasn't a tolerant country. Plus, Braun's actions of insulting Tongning made it impossible for the Americans to retaliate. It didn't take long before news of the incident spread throughout the country. Elder Imo paid close attention to this incident. Seeing Tongning stand on the opposite side of the Americans and say such proud words, he felt the years of humiliation he had been holding back had finally been washed away. In the past, he had always felt that Tongning was lacking something, but he couldn't find an answer. From this moment onwards, he finally understood. He wanted Tongning's courage, just like the Imo family. Needless to say, Tongning had completely gained Elder Mo's appreciation. Such a good granddaughter-in-law should be pampered and doted on. Of course, not only did Tongning gain Elder Mo's love, news of her confrontation with Braun quickly spread throughout the entire country. Some people said that Tongning was too stupid and that she had destroyed her international acting career. Others said that Tongning's courage was commendable because she was brave enough to speak her mind and defend the dignity of her country. "We just saw a good actress, yet she ended up destroying her own future. I feel great. When you come across a shameless foreigner, this is the way to fight back." Tongning did the right thing, didn't she? Plus, this is in line with her personality. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. Exactly. Tongning has always been brave enough to love and hate. This incident was published on every major news outlet and once again, Tongning's status in the hearts of the public rose. She was different from the average actress. Her value lay in the fact that she had a code of conduct. This was something that no one, no matter what, could go overboard with. Wei-An also gave Tongning a phone call and praised her for living up to expectations. "From now on, you will be the one to handle situations like this. Compared to an actress or a model, you are more qualified to be a diplomat." "Why do I feel like I've seen a third way out?" Tongning smiled. "Tongning, I wish you all the best." These words were from Wei-An's heart. In the industry, it seemed, she was the only one that could live like Tongning. Afterwards, it was time for Tongning to return home. As she had caused such a huge commotion, her fans decided to pick her up at the airport. No female artist could cause such a huge commotion like a male celebrity. But Tongning managed to do it. But the fact that she was pregnant made it impossible for Tongning to take the public route because she needed to protect the child. To avoid a huge commotion, Immerse directly booked a flight for the next day. However, on the day that the fans were to pick her up, a serious stampede occurred at Beijing Airport due to the huge crowd. As a result, a number of fans were injured. The airport immediately sent out security to take the injured fans to the hospital. Luckily, they only suffered minor injuries. But on this day, Tongning was nowhere to be seen at Beijing Airport. She had never planned to return to China on this day. The reporters later obtained Tongning's actual flight time from the airport. Only then did they discover that, like before, Tongning had changed her flight date to avoid the crowd. However, many fans still expressed their understanding. If Tongning had come out at that time, she would have definitely been injured. Luckily, Tongning didn't return. However, there were also some injured fans that expressed their anger. "I never expected she would treat us like this. Does she think she can ignore her fans just because her international status has risen?" Of course, this incident caused a commotion. But the people that blamed Tongning were in the minority. Until an artist posted a comment on their social media, "When it comes to creating hype, Rue is the only one that can win. Their new film is about to be released. Haha, they don't treat their fans as humans." Following this, a second comment appeared, "Their new film is about to be released. Yet, they look down on the Americans. When a new film arrives, they will immediately kneel down and lick their boots." After all, Tongning was a person that refused to admit defeat. She touched the nerves of those that had previously swallowed their anger in front of the Americans. Chapter 480. Why did this voice appear? It was because many people had told Tongning that she wasn't suited to stay in the industry. Her actions had subtly broken the rules of the industry. Although her words in the US were appreciated by many people, there were always people that were willing to endure the humiliation in order to make a name for themselves in Hollywood. In reality, Tongning's actions were meant to raise the status of domestic actors. However, there were some people that had faced the same situation in the past, yet they chose to endure the humiliation. They felt ashamed and angry because Tongning's elegance made them look extremely vulgar. Some people were even afraid that fans would compare them to Tongning, so they used the stampede incident at the airport as a pretext. No actor didn't want to step onto the international stage of Hollywood, and no actor didn't want to be famous around the world. If a big-name American director came knocking on their door, they refused to believe that Rue would let Tongning miss out on such an opportunity. So, it was only natural to claim that Tongning was trying to create hype. At this time, before Tongning left the US, an American director actually contacted Immerse through a friend of his. In reality, the director had already contacted Rue about the fact that they were lacking a perfect Asian character. The commotion that Tongning caused in the US made many rational Americans reconsider their attitude towards Asian actors. They did not hold a grudge and were willing to give Asian actors a chance to prove themselves. But Tongning still rejected them. "I'm sorry, I have my reasons for not being able to take on the film. Thank you for your appreciation." The director was willing to give Tongning a way out, but Tongning still put on an act. For those that had been in the industry for many years, they felt that Tongning was acting too pretentious. As a result, their disdain towards her intensified. The day after, Tongning and Immerse returned to Beijing. As soon as they found out about the stampede incident, they expressed their concern. But, for safety reasons, Tongning did not take the normal route. At this time, Tongning's acting career was at its peak. She was famous both domestically and internationally. But, because she shone so brightly, she blocked the path of countless people. In fact, there were even artists from other agencies that started to form an alliance to ostracize Tongning. Tongning has slapped a lot of people in the face this time, including a few foreign artists. The more people she offends, the happier everyone will be, right? Back when she was a model, she was already arrogant. Who would have thought, now that she's an actress, she's still acting all high and mighty? It's so disgusting. Everyone in the industry is secretly communicating with each other. As long as there is a connection that can bring down Tongning, we need to make use of it. As long as it can be of use, don't hold back. Forget it. Can you afford to offend Hairue? Plus, don't you think Hairue doesn't have enough information on the things that happen in our industry? Emoting will be the first to know what you guys are up to. So what? Hairue could deal with one company, but if there were dozens of them, what could they do? Don't you understand the saying, everyone adds fuel to the fire? Inside a remote, high-class private nightclub, a few actors that often appeared on the silver screen were gathered together to discuss Tongning. In any case, I'm not going to participate in this matter. I'm just going to watch all of you perform. One of the women with long hair tied behind her head said arrogantly, "Pfft, just wait and see. There are too many people in the industry that can't stand Tongning. This time, they will definitely teach her a lesson. Who has the guts to do this? Have you guys already thought of a plan?" The other three men sipped on their red wine as they gave each other a meaningful smile. Someone's got their hands on Tongning's information in the U.S. Don't forget, the industry is only so big. Long Jie was good at getting her hands on information. So, before Lu Che even heard about it, Long Jie had already found out from her friends that someone was plotting against Tongning. So, she immediately headed to Hyatt Regency. As Tongning had no idea she was pregnant, Long Jie's sudden visit made her so nervous that she subconsciously covered her stomach. She had a feeling that her pregnancy would have a huge impact on Long Jie. Tongning, what's wrong with you this time? Long Jie had always felt that Tongning had always hidden her abilities and would never do anything that would anger the public. But this time, she had indeed aroused the ire of many in the industry. Do you know that there are already people waiting to ambush you from behind? What do they want? Tongning asked calmly as she sat on the sofa. In 2 days, you will be appearing on an important interview. On that day, I heard that someone is going to release an explosive piece of information. As for the details, I haven't found out yet. In that case, I'll just go with the flow. Tongning's eyes did not contain a trace of panic. I'm finding it harder and harder to understand you. Long Jie had no idea what Tongning was planning. Hearing this, Tongning finally put down the magazine in her hands and looked at Long Jie in seriousness. I have something to tell you. Huh? Long Jie raised an eyebrow questioningly. Actually, I'm almost 3 months pregnant, Tongning honestly told Long Jie. At the same time, she carefully observed Long Jie's expression. However, Long Jie was indeed surprised. She then looked at Tongning's stomach in surprise. Does that mean I'm going to be a wife? Long Jie laughed. This is a good thing. Why did you keep it a secret from me? Tongning did not say a word as she looked at Long Jie. Long Jie seemed to understand what she was thinking as she smiled. Did you think I wouldn't find out just because you didn't tell me? Don't worry, I'm fine. Io, did those people say you were infertile? They should have been slapped in the face. I don't plan to reveal this information, Tongning replied calmly. Plus, during the interview, I will be making a very important decision. Long Jie held onto Tongning's hand and nodded her head. You are no longer the Tongning you once knew. If you want something, go for it. If you want to do something, go for it. Long Jie, thank you for everything you've done. What nonsense are you saying? Long Jie squeezed Tongning's hand before letting go. I really hope to see your child born. Think about your and boss's genes. Oh God, this child is going to be heaven-defying. Tongning lowered her head and looked at her stomach. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. Afterwards, Long Jie left Hyatt Regency. However, as soon as she entered her car, she subconsciously held onto her stomach as tears uncontrollably rolled down her cheeks. She also wanted a child. She wanted it too. Chapter 481. After Long Jie left, Tongning stared at the magazine on the table in a daze. Afterwards, she turned her gaze to the bright scenery outside the window. When it came to the darkness of the industry, she was already invulnerable. She had never been afraid of fighting with anyone, but now that she had a child with Emoting, she was going to do her best to take good care of their child. Was she planning to plot against her? Just give it your all. If she was afraid, she wouldn't be the vengeful Tongning. Over the past 2 days, the fans who had been trampled at the airport had been discharged one after another. When they were discharged, they received a full refund from the hospital. This was because someone had taken full responsibility for their medical expenses. However, they did not reveal who it was. The fans were confused, but they assumed it was arranged by Rue, so they accepted it without any qualms. As soon as they were discharged from the hospital, they announced that they had turned from fans to haters. Although Tongning expressed her condolences to them through Rue as soon as she returned to China, they couldn't see a single trace of sincerity. They even posted on their social media accounts, "I must have been blind to have liked Tongning for so long." Actually, in Tongning's eyes, we are worthless. In the past, when she saw us arguing with passers-by, she never stepped out to protect us. But this time, I've seen through her. When we are in danger, Tongning is worse than a stranger. Haha, how cold-blooded. Because of the extreme comments they made, they were attacked by other Tongning fans. As a result, they became even more extreme. In fact, they even used their identities as longtime fans to say to passers-by, "I've been a longtime fan for a few years now. Now, I'm a hater of Tongning. Her hype has no limits." Let me warn you, don't be tricked by her. She is extremely virtuous and has never had much contact with her fans. Can I say that she has always been a virtuous person? But it's getting messed up now. As longtime fans knew a lot of insider information and made up stories that were half true and half false, they actually caused internal strife among some of the fans. On the outside, there were people in the industry keeping an eye on her. On the inside, there were fans that had yet to calm down. Tongning was currently in a situation of internal and external troubles. Although, for Tongning, this wasn't going to cause too much damage. But if her loyal fans and potential enemies were to team up, there would be no end of trouble. Late at night, after Ting helped Tongning to sleep, he returned to the study room. This time, compared to the previous conflicts of interest, Tongning was facing an even bigger crisis. Although this was something she had to face on her path to becoming a superstar, as her husband and manager, Ting would not allow her to suffer any harm. However, he never expected Tongning to wake up halfway through. "It's already so late. Why are you still hiding in the study?" Ting watched as Tongning pushed open the door and walked over to his side, so he wrapped his arms around her. "I still have some work to do? Who are you trying to fool?" Tongning sat on Ting's lap and lifted her head to look at his computer screen. "Are you making arrangements for my exclusive interview in 2 days?" "I can't hide anything from you," Ting replied as he placed his chin on Tongning's shoulder. His voice contained a hint of exhaustion. "Actually, I've already made a decision." Tongning turned her head and looked at Ting in seriousness. Tongning turned her head and looked at Ting in seriousness. "I would like to take this opportunity to announce my temporary retreat from acting." Hearing Tongning say she was going to temporarily retreat from the industry, Ting was stunned. "What's wrong?" Tongning asked after seeing his reaction. "Nothing. It's just, when you were about to become an international supermodel, I asked you to give up on your current achievements and become an actress. Right now, your career is on the rise, but I can't bear for you to choose to retreat because of our child. I want you to be happy, not because I want you to give up on more and more things. Right now, everyone is saying that I have double standards and that I look down on Hollywood while meeting with an American director. So, no matter what I try to explain, people will think that I'm just trying to please the public. So, instead of doing that, I might as well distance myself from all this," Tongning said in a gentle voice. "Right now, I simply want to focus all my attention on our child. That's why I've decided to retreat from the industry. But it wasn't easy for you to get to where you are today. Ting, there's nothing I can't do. It's just a matter of time. So, right now, I want to take good care of our child." Ting hugged Tongning tightly. Thinking about the trust and sacrifices she had made along the way, he couldn't help but remind himself that in this lifetime, he was going to give the best things to Tongning. "Okay," Ting nodded his head. "I want you to return to the dazzling Tongning after our child is born. In fact, I want you to be even more dazzling than before." Tongning smiled and sat up straight. She then held onto Ting's handsome face and placed a gentle kiss on his lips. Tongning had always been that type of person. No matter what was right or wrong, as long as it was a path that she had chosen, she would walk it to the end even if she had to kneel down, especially for the sake of Ting and their child. She felt, even if it cost her her life, she wouldn't hesitate. Afterwards, Ting gave Lu Che a phone call and told him to give up on any preparations he had made. The moment Tongning announced her retreat from the industry, it would be the best way to counter all the rumors. In fact, Ting suddenly came to a realization. According to Tongning's flawless personality, the only reason she dared to say something like that in the US was because she was already mentally prepared for the consequences of her actions. So, rather than saying someone was plotting against her, it was more accurate to say that she was trying to find a perfect excuse to retreat from the industry. Ting understood. Tongning only had one motive for doing this. She wanted to protect the child in her stomach and not be disturbed by the outside world. I really don't know what to do with you. Even I was almost fooled by you. Tongning understood what Ting meant as she let out a gentle laugh. What other people do has nothing to do with me. I simply don't want to cause you any more trouble. Isn't it better for me to retreat like this? You always think about me, but have you ever thought about yourself? Of course I've thought about myself. My biggest wish was to become someone worthy of you. But now, I simply want to take good care of you and our child. Tongning replied in seriousness. So, don't get involved this time. If anyone is plotting against me, I will let everyone know that even if I'm not in the industry, that no one will ever forget about me. Ting smiled and nodded his head. Okay, did they want to team up against her? Then let's watch a good show. Chapter 482. This time, Tongning's interview was called Super Celebrity Talk. It was an interview with the ace of the film industry. This time, Tongning would be participating in the interview as an actress. It was very different to her previous appearance as Feng Kai. The incident of old fans slandering Tongning was still ongoing. At the same time, rumors of Tongning double-crossing an American director were also spreading. This time, everyone in the industry was working together. But Tongning was curious to see what kind of tricks they had up their sleeves. Ningjia, this is the information regarding the interview. Inside Hyatt Regency, Song Yinshu sat opposite Tongning as she handed her a thick stack of papers. In order not to let anyone see, I've already arranged for clothes to cover your stomach. Thank you for your hard work. Tongning received the papers and nodded her head. She then seemed to remember something as she put down the papers and said to Song Yinshu, You were originally sent here to take care of me. After I get pregnant, there will be a few months of free time. So, what are your plans? Song Yinshu had already prepared herself for this. So, she pulled on her purple scarf and smiled. President Mo has already arranged for me to do something else. Huh. President Mo has asked me to take care of your brother, Song Yinshu explained. That's a good idea. After hearing about this, Tongning let out a sigh of relief. Although Jingxian has adapted to the industry, he is still young and is bound to make mistakes. With you by his side to help him out, I can rest assured. I won't let you down. Song Yinshu suddenly stood up and bowed sincerely. Song Yinshu suddenly stood up and gave Tongning a sincere bow. I really want to thank you for helping me learn so much. I'm the one that should be thanking you for taking care of me, Tongning replied as she held onto her hand. In that case, will this interview with Super Celebrity Talk be okay? Actually, Song Yinshu wasn't completely clueless. After all, being in the industry, she had definitely heard some rumors. Of course, it won't be a problem, Tongning smiled. After receiving a positive answer, Song Yinshu bid farewell to Tongning and left. As Tongning watched Song Yinshu leave, she suddenly felt a little emotional. Everyone had to complete their tasks and then retreat. But for Song Yinshu, it seemed, her story had yet to truly begin. Tongning is finally going to participate in an exclusive interview. Apart from some scattered news and rumors, it seems she hasn't made an appearance in a long time. I hope she can bring good news and clarify the recent rumors. I don't believe that she is a two-faced person. Tisk, those old fans are so cheap. Recently, a few small-time celebrities have stepped forward to mock my Ning. Last time, I even participated in the scolding battle. It was so satisfying. Previous poster, 1 fan is better than 10 haters. Don't ruin your Ning's character. As soon as the trailer for the interview was released, Tongning's name was already on the hottest search list in the entertainment industry. As one of the most popular celebrities in the world, it seemed Any small matter could attract the attention of the public. As for the interview, it would be at 7 p.m. tonight, and it would be a live broadcast. There was no way to edit it and redo it. 4 p.m. Under Emoting's protection, Tongning arrived at the television station in a van. Thanks to Song Yinshu's meticulous arrangements, Tongning was dressed in a navy blue trench coat with a bow tied around her waist. However, just as she stepped out of the van, a group of people suddenly pushed past the media. As soon as they saw Tongning step out of the van, they threw eggs in her direction. Emoting immediately pulled Tongning into his embrace and gestured for the bodyguards behind him to stop the men from getting any closer. Four bodyguards immediately stepped forward and grabbed onto the hands of the 5 young women. They then dragged them in front of Emoting. Emoting's gaze was like a torch as his dark pupils emitted a cold glow. "Are you guys crazy? We are her old fans. Last time, when we were all trampled, where was she? Tongning, we were wrong about you. Even strangers know to show sympathy. How could you be so cold and heartless?" Seeing more and more people gathered to watch the show, Emoting knew there was no point in dragging things out any longer. "So," he sneered, "how naive. Go to the hospital and check the medical records. Find out who the strangers are." After speaking, Emoting escorted Tongning into the television station. At this time, the bodyguards immediately released the 5 women. They didn't understand why Emoting would mention medical expenses at a time like this. So, one of them directly called the hospital to ask about it. But before they could find someone to ask, one of Emoting's bodyguards crossed his arms and replied, "What's there to check?" Needless to say, if there is one person in this world that can forgive their stupid fans, it is our madam. All of your medical bills were paid by her out of her own pocket. I feel ashamed on behalf of you guys. Hearing Tongning's name, the women were stunned as they stood rooted to the ground, unsure if they should believe him. As a celebrity, the madam shouldn't be held responsible for your brainless actions. So, from now on, don't let the madam see you again. From now on, Hairue will publicly explain that the madam paid for your medical expenses. If you still have an ounce of conscience, step out and admit your wrongdoings. Heartless and unscrupulous people. Perhaps it was because of Emoting's careful selection. Even the bodyguards by his side were eloquent. This one, 82 tall, muscular and handsome man was wearing black sunglasses and emitting the scent of male hormones. Of course, the reason why Emoting chose these 4 men was because they each had their own strengths. After hearing the bodyguard's words, the onlookers immediately realized what was going on. They were talking about the fan stampede at the airport. Because they didn't care about Tongning, they went around slandering her. But the truth was, oh God, this is awkward. Didn't they say that Tongning doesn't care about her fans? For a popular artist to pay for her fans' medical expenses is already quite good. If these brainless people had brains, would they still be called brainless? Fuck, isn't this a classic example of biting the hand that feeds you? How dare they go around slandering her? Tongning must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have a fan like this. As the women heard the discussions around them, their faces turned red. They never expected that the kind person that paid for their medical expenses without leaving his name was actually Tongning. It was Tongning. The women left the TV station with their tails between their legs. They had never felt so ashamed in their entire lives. Yet, Hairue still wanted to make this matter public. Wouldn't that be the same as announcing to the entire world that they had a problem with their characters? Chapter 483. Are you okay? Emoting asked as he wrapped his arm around Tongning after entering the hall. Tongning shook her head with a smile on her face. It seemed all she wanted to do was reassure Emoting. From now on, things like this need to be dealt with immediately. There is no need to drag it out. Emoting's voice was cold. Emoting's tone was a little cold. When it came to Tongning's safety, he could never afford to make a single mistake. So, today's scene served as a reminder. There will be no future, Tongning replied in seriousness. Because of Tongning's current status and Emoting's status as her manager, the people at the television station all smiled warmly at them. After entering the recording studio, Tongning sat in the guest seat. Opposite her was the female host with long black hair. Immerse stood behind the scenes, taking in everything that was happening in the studio. Fans sat below the stage, each holding a nameplate with Tongning's name on it. As far as the eye could see, the fan-shaped viewing area was densely packed with people. Apart from being in awe of Tongning, everyone was also in awe of Immerse's coldness. After all, this king-like existence was Tongning's best protector. Not long after, the director gave the host an OK sign. The host sat up straight and smiled brightly. Because of its primetime slot and the popularity that Superstar Ta had accumulated over the years, it had always attracted the attention of film fans. And with the addition of Tongning, from the start, the viewership ratings had always been higher than the other channels. In August last year, a model who was famous for her long legs announced her comeback in a high-profile manner. Afterwards, with her own hard work, she created one legend after another. The Oriental trend sparked a craze in the US, and because of the Oriental trend, she was awarded the Most Outstanding Contribution Award. Afterwards, every step she took was difficult but steady. But, just as she was one step away from becoming an international supermodel, she made a shocking decision. She changed from a model to an actress. I have to say, the heavens always take pity on those who work hard. So, as an actress, she was extremely successful. And this person is today's female lead, Tongning. The host's words were unusually sincere. It was obvious that she had done her research on Tongning. Afterwards, the host placed her gaze on Tongning and asked gently, "So, how does it feel to be an actress? Is it better to be a model or an actress?" Actually, there's nothing to compare the two professions. However, they're similar because they're both meant to convey a comfortable visual effect. As for what it feels like to be an actress, I think I like challenges and breakthroughs, Tongning replied seriously. Everyone knows that you've shot 3 movies in a row this year, and the last 2 were the highlights. Which role do you like the most? The actress from Stupid, because I admire the person who wrote the story, but the scriptwriter of Stupid is John Doe. Does that mean you actually know who the scriptwriter is? The host asked. If it's convenient for you to reveal it, please tell us. Tongning took the opportunity to glance at Immerse, hinting that she might not be able to keep this secret any longer. However, Immerse did not seem to mind. It seemed he could do whatever she wanted. So, Tongning smiled and confidently told the host, from now on, his name will appear at the beginning and end of the film. Or perhaps, you can all take a guess. The fans below the stage immediately fell into a discussion. Including the host, everyone was thinking about Tongning's question. There weren't many people in the country that could write such an outstanding script. As for the best scriptwriters, they had already established their own style of writing, so Stupid couldn't possibly have come from them. In the end, the host had no choice but to ask Tongning for help. Tongning, hurry and tell us. Satisfy our curiosity. It's actually quite easy to guess. Tongning smiled with a deeper meaning. At this time, the fans below the stage finally reacted and began to shout at the top of their lungs. It's President Immerse. Tongning, it's President Immerse, isn't it? As soon as the host heard this answer, she covered her mouth in surprise. After a second, she asked, Really? Is it really President Immerse? Tongning looked at the host and then turned to look at the fans below the stage. In the end, she nodded her head. Oh God, the host gasped. This is big news. President Immerse is actually the creator of Stupid. Isn't this a bit too well written? Yes, that's why I also admire him. Tongning was like a show-off maniac. She wanted everyone to know that Immerse was capable of anything, even though this was already a known fact. As the mysterious scriptwriter of Stupid was unveiled, the atmosphere in the recording studio suddenly became lively. However, at this time, the internet finally released evidence of Tongning's double-dealing. It was a photo of her meeting with the American director. And this American director was someone that everyone knew. It was likely they had obtained a copy of the hotel surveillance footage. But in the photo, Tongning and the director were indeed chatting happily. There's no bottom line in creating hype and no bottom line in shamelessness. Didn't they say they despised foreign directors? So this is Tongning with a backbone. It turns out, her backbone has to kneel in front of the US dollar. It's all hype. It's just for the sake of a new film. But this method is a little hypocritical and shameless. Is Tongning's aloof image about to crumble? Just wait and see. It won't be long before the US officially announces that Tongning has been cast. If that's the case, then Tongning can forget about watching any of her films from now on. I hate people that are like this. Let's make a bet. If the US doesn't announce it, I will run around the streets naked. Did they think these comments were made by fans? This wasn't the case. Every single comment came from an artist with a different status. After all, they had a certain level of appeal and attracted a lot of attention. Plus, it was rare to see a group of artists ridiculing an actor. As a result, the topic of Tongning's bad reputation in the entertainment industry became the hottest topic on social media. There were a few key words: hype, hypocrisy, bitch, and stand up. Above all, the artists that made comments were waiting for Tongning to be slapped in the face. Did Tongning really accept an American film after making such a comment? Don't think this was a small matter. In the entertainment industry, wearing another country's flag was enough to attract disgust from the public. If Tongning really did something like this, she would definitely hit rock bottom. After all, this time, the people that attacked her were a group of artists. Chapter 484. Inside the studio, Tongning was still being interviewed by the host. Even though Superstar Talk had quite a few internal staff members that had heard the news, a large number of celebrities were accusing Tongning of creating hype and acting hypocritically. To increase the popularity of the topic, the host discussed with the director during their break and decided it was necessary to ask Tongning about her plans for her next film. They wanted to see if they could get any information from her. So, as the conversation continued, the host's smile was no longer as sincere as before. In fact, it was a little awkward. Tongning, your fans are actually curious as to what plans you have for your next film. Tongning had already sensed the presenter's probing. She already knew that a bloodbath was brewing outside. I already have plans, Tongning replied in seriousness. In that case, can you reveal a little bit to us film fans? For example, what kind of role will you be taking on? Host, you don't have to beat around the bush like this. I know you want to know if I've signed a contract with an American director, Tongning said straightforwardly as she looked at the host seriously. The host felt a little awkward. In that case, do you think I've already signed a contract with an American director? Tongning subconsciously gave a flirtatious smile as she asked. The public's reaction is indeed huge. The host's face flushed red. Don't be nervous. Since I'm already here as a guest, I think you can be a little more open-minded with your questions. After all, I've already revealed the secret that my husband is the screenwriter of Stupid. I'm sure there are only questions that you are too afraid to ask, but I am too afraid to answer. Seeing that Tongning wasn't joking, the host put on a serious expression. After making eye contact with the director, she finally let go of her courage. Because of Tongning's words, the show continued to reach new heights in viewership ratings. Obviously, this was the answer that the netizens wanted to hear. In fact, the director even prepared an electronic device for the host to refresh her comments. This time, the host completely let loose. Even though she had never been so ruthless towards a guest of Superstar Talk. According to statistics, there are currently over 30 celebrities online that are accusing you of creating hype. Do you have any response to this? I just want to ask one question. What are they basing their claims on? Tongning laughed as she asked the host. Based on the fact that I met with the director? I think, now that the entire internet has fallen, and the matter has blown up quite a bit, what do you plan to do next? Although she could already feel Emoting's cold gaze behind her, she still gathered her courage and said, why don't we contact one of the artists and find out why he made such a comment? If it is a misunderstanding, we can explain ourselves on the spot. Go ahead. Tang Ning was fearless. Then, the director team made a prompt decision and used their connections to get the contact information of one of them. Then, they contacted the person on the set of the show. In reality, the reason why the production team dared to say something like this was because Tongning was confident in herself. She must have made thorough preparations before she dared to agree like this, right? After a short ring, the person actually picked up the phone. The host immediately explained that she was currently filming a show with Tongning and brought up the sensitive topic. But the person did not respond and directly hung up. At the very least, any artist with a bit of intelligence would not directly express their standpoint. After all, there were over 30 artists that had spoken up. If he was the only one that was contacted and spoke up, wouldn't he become everyone's target? He wasn't stupid. Afterwards, the television station was surrounded by a large group of fans. Some were there to protect Tongning, but of course, there were also those that didn't like her at all. Did it have to end up like this? Tongning looked helpless. In the end, she glanced at the host and sat up straight. Actually, today, I want to use the platform of Superstar Talk to announce a very important decision that I will definitely not disappoint. As it was a live broadcast, a large number of people online had already started to complain. It seems Tongning is about to announce that she has accepted a role in an American drama. Do you even need to ask? The answer is already obvious. Although I'm disappointed in Tongning, I still hope to hear something else from her mouth. Her image has already been destroyed. Let's see if she can continue to stay in the entertainment industry. Just as everyone thought Tongning was about to announce some good news, she stood up gracefully and bowed to her fans. To be honest, this decision has forced me to abandon a lot of my family. I know that a lot of people are waiting for me to be abused and slapped in the face. However, I regret to tell all of you that today, I would like to use the platform of Superstar Talk to officially announce something to everyone. I would like to announce, from today onwards, I, Tongning, will be taking an indefinite break from the industry. Wait, retreat? It turned out, Tongning wasn't going to say that there was a problem with the American drama. She was going to retreat from the industry. Retreat from the industry? It was just two simple words, but it seemed to contain a huge amount of power as it slammed into the bodies of the 30 or so artists. They said she was trying to create hype, and they said she was shameless. But, at a time like this, her counterattack was to retreat from the industry. She didn't use any resources, she didn't use Emoting's name, and she didn't try to find excuses. She was going to retreat from the industry. No, Tongning, are you looking down on the industry because of this incident? Or, after filming 3 films in a row, I'm already satisfied. It's time for me to take on a different role, Tongning replied with a smile. I simply hope that those that have hated me, lied to me, and said that I was trying to create hype will remember that they have been slapped in the face by me today. My plan is to not take on any more films. My aim is to retire after my success. So, I have decided to retreat from the industry. As soon as Tongning's response was revealed, everyone was shocked. They had expected her to come up with all sorts of excuses, but they never expected her to directly announce her retreat from the industry at a time like this. If she was to meet with an American director and sign a contract, then she would no longer dabble in the industry. Plenty of people thought that Tongning was at the peak of her career and that she wouldn't do anything to hurt herself, but she didn't take the normal path. Oh God, Tongning has directly announced her retreat from the industry? Chapter 485. That's right, retreat. Tongning replied confidently. The host covered her mouth in shock as she looked at Tongning. She never imagined, in order to prove her innocence, Tongning would make such a decisive decision. Tongning, you didn't actually have to. There was no official announcement from the American director, and I didn't sign a contract with anyone. The only reason I met with them was to reject them, not to sign a contract, Tongning said as she faced the main camera. From today onwards, Tongning will temporarily cease to exist in the entertainment industry. Thank you everyone for your support and tolerance. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone here. After speaking, Tongning once again faced the camera and gave a sincere bow. Tongning strikes back at the scandal. I choose to retreat from the industry. What forced Tongning to retreat from the industry? Behind Tongning's retreat is a group of jealous vampires. It didn't take long before the words Tongning has retreated appeared on the headlines of all the major websites. Her announcement had caught everyone off guard, especially those that claimed Tongning was creating hype and was ambitious. As soon as they saw Tongning retreat from the industry, a look of disbelief appeared on their faces. They couldn't believe their judgment of Tongning had been wrong once again. As Tongning left the studio, Imo Ting was on the phone with Lu Che. Find out who's controlling these artists. I'll give you 3 days. Lu Che knew Imo Ting wouldn't let things go so easily, so he had already begun his investigation. Since they dared to go against Tongning to this extent, it seemed they weren't far from death. Afterwards, Imo Ting escorted Tongning out of the TV station. This time, the fans outside the TV station no longer argued. In fact, some of them felt guilty for blaming Tongning wrongly. Especially after seeing Tongning walk out of the TV station, the fans immediately surrounded her and begged, "Tongning, don't retreat from the industry. Continue to act. Don't bother with these nobodies." "That's right, Ningjia. We can't bear to see you go. Can you reconsider?" "Ningjia, I support your decision. This industry is too disgusting. A bunch of people don't know right from wrong and only know how to slander the person we love. How shameless." Faced with the different voices of her fans, Tongning suddenly turned around and smiled at everyone. "Thank you all. I'm sure we will meet again if fate allows it." Tongning. Ningjia. Fuck. I hope President Imo can help us get revenge by kicking those nobodies out of the entertainment industry. That's right. When I get back, I'll make a list of those artists and make it public. Let's see how they don't work hard and push others aside. Seeing her fans' eyes redden, Tongning couldn't bear to see them like this. So, in the end, she made a shushing gesture. "I still have 2 films to release. I'm sure they won't disappoint you. You are all my fans, so no matter where I am, I will always wish you the best. I'm leaving today not because I admit defeat, but because I need time to settle down. Trust me, I won't stay in the shadows forever." After speaking, Tongning boarded her black car with her fans following closely behind her for the rest of the journey. Ting. I will continue to protect my fans. I hope that those that have supported me all this time will be lucky because of me. Imo Ting ran his hand through Tongning's hair and nodded his head. "Fang Yu knows what to do." Tongning relaxed like she had been relieved of a responsibility. She suddenly lay on Imo Ting's lap and closed her eyes. "From now on, I will have time to take care of you and our child." Imo Ting's lips curved upwards gently as he leaned over and placed a kiss on Tongning's earlobe. Tongning's fans kept their promises. That night, they listed all the artists that had made their comments online according to their popularity. Of course, since Tongning had already made such a big response, it meant that she had never signed a contract with an American director. So, the people from Hairue immediately stepped out to speak up for Tongning. All I can say is, Tongning is too outstanding and attracted a pack of hungry wolves. As Tongning's senior, I would like to say that the people from Hairue have worked hard to get to where they are today. We have never used any underhanded methods. As for those that ostracized Tongning, I'm sure their intestines are green with regret right now because everyone has seen their true colors. As a part of Hairue, as long as President Imo and Tongning need us, we will do our best to help. Bullying Hairue? Do you think you're qualified? I trust President Imo will do his job properly. So, Tongning's retreat triggered an intense backlash, not only from Hairue, but also from those that had previously been oppressed by Hairue. I feel bad for Tongning. The ones that should leave should be those arrogant trash. Haha, aren't there a few repeat offenders on this list? I'm already used to it. A small matter is a test of one's character. From this moment onwards, this list is going to be filled with Shang family's worries. I wish you all the best. Let's wait and see what happens. Although the incident involved a lot of artists, the power of anger online was enough to topple mountains and overturn seas. A few of the artists had already deleted their previous comments and cleared out their social media accounts. But Tongning's fans would not forget about them, because none of the artists on the list could escape. Meanwhile, a few artists from smaller agencies publicly expressed that they were too young and wanted to apologize to Tongning. Apologize? Tongning doesn't care about your apology. She simply wants you to leave the entertainment industry. Even an A-lister like Tongning has the courage to leave the industry. How could a lowly C-lister like you not have the guts to do so? To gather so many people, I'm afraid there must be a bigger conspiracy behind the scenes. As for the people on the list, it's best if you don't come out. Just looking at you makes me want to vomit. This is what you call hypocrisy. Of course, Hai Rui never let everyone down. Early the next morning, they announced that Tongning had paid for her fans' medical fees and revealed the truth to the world. Tongning cared so much about her fans, yet she was bitten back by them. Many people were shocked and felt disappointed for Tongning. Afterwards, Hai Rui released a second statement. But, to everyone's surprise, this time, it was Ting who personally released the statement. The core of the statement was simple. As long as someone from Hai Rui was bullied, Hai Rui would use all their resources to seek justice. So what if they had 30 artists? Even if they had 300, Hai Rui would still find out the truth and make those involved pay. Because of Ting's release, this statement caused a huge commotion. It also showed how much attention Hai Rui was paying to this incident. Most importantly, Ting would definitely not let the people that started the rumors get away with it. Definitely. Chapter 486. But, when he heard that Tongning had retreated from the industry, he was still quite shocked. But, Elder Tang remained calm this time. He knew exactly why Tongning had made such a decision. Retreating from the industry was a good thing. It was time for her to do so. Grandfather, don't you think it's a waste for Sister 3 to do this? Tang Jingxian asked as he watched the entertainment news. Sister 3 isn't someone with a fragile heart. Why would she suddenly make such a decision? Your sister is protected by your brother-in-law. You should worry about yourself. Have you gotten yourself a girlfriend recently? Elder Tang looked at Tang Jingxian meaningfully. Tang Jingxian smiled in agreement. When will you bring her back for us to see? Elder Tang continued to ask. Hey, grandfather, now that Sister 3 is no longer an artist, she can return to the Tang family and take over as CEO. What do you think? Tang Jingxian deliberately changed the subject. Elder Tang knew what he was thinking, so he smiled with a deeper meaning. Since you've entered the entertainment industry, you don't need to worry about the Tang family. Grandfather has his own plans. The grandfather and grandson sat in the living room watching TV. They did not notice the gloomy expression on Tang Xian's face as she stood behind a pillar. She wanted to destroy Tongning, but she never expected that Tongning would rather retreat from the industry than be slandered by others. Plus, wasn't this the same as shooting herself in the foot? She originally thought that by destroying Tongning's reputation, she would be able to deal a blow to Tongning. But, she never expected, it would instead put Tongning in danger of returning to the Tang family. Tongning taking over as CEO? If that was the case, wouldn't she have endured all this time for nothing? She couldn't allow this to happen. So, Tang Xian directly returned to her room. After locking the door, she pulled out her phone and gave a mysterious person a phone call. Send me Xia Yuling's latest schedule. If I don't make a move soon, Tongning will be back. I need to seize this opportunity to reclaim my power. The person on the other end of the phone responded with a, okay, and hung up. Of course, the only reason Tang Xian was willing to work as a lowly employee for so long was because she already had a plan in mind. First, she used the excuse that Xia Yuling's secretary almost caused her to miscarry as an excuse to force her away. Afterwards, Xia Yuling's newly hired secretary slowly sided with her due to her repeated threats. Yet, Xia Yuling did not seem to notice. This time, Tang Xian decided to stake everything on one throw. Who asked her to hate Tongning? 10 minutes later, Tang Xian received an email from Xia Yuling. According to the email, Xia Yuling would be leaving for Switzerland in a few days. Switzerland, Tang Xian thought to herself, since I've already left, don't ever come back. Xia Yuling was indeed on a trip to Switzerland, but that didn't mean she and Elder Tang were unaware of Tang Xian's every move in the office. Including how the secretary was secretly helping an outsider, Xia Yuling was well aware. Not long after, Xia Yuling received a message from her confidant, saying that her secretary and Tang Xian might be up to something, so she needed to be careful. Xia Yuling immediately thought of the trip to Switzerland. Although there was no guarantee that there would be a trap, it was better to be cautious. Originally, she was supposed to go on this trip alone, but since the secretary liked to snitch so much, she decided to bring her along. After making up her mind, Xia Yuling gave Tongning a phone call. Tang Xian is up to something again. She's been holding back for so long and is only making a move now. It must be because you announced your retreat and she feels like her status is being threatened. In that case, she guessed correctly, Tongning replied with a smile. Mom, use this incident to get rid of Tang Xian? In that case, we need to plan a spectacular show, Xia Yuling replied after a moment of thought. I'm going back to Tang Core, Tongning replied straightforwardly. Since she's looking forward to it, I'd be letting her down if I don't return. What about the baby? It's fine, I have my ways, Tongning reassured Xia Yuling. Although her grandfather had given up on forcing her to become the heir of Tang Core, if Tang Xian continued to act like a villain and her mother couldn't do anything about it, she would have no choice but to clean up the mess herself. After Tongning finished her phone call, Mo Ting covered her with a blanket and carried her. The weather is getting colder and colder. It's best if you stay in bed and get some rest. But, you heard what I just said. Didn't you say you'd take good care of me and the baby? I'm not going to work. There are simply a few situations that require my attention, so it won't affect me too much. I'm afraid that if I continue to ignore Tang Xian, she will hurt Mom and Grandfather. Mo Ting was a little surprised. He looked straight ahead and replied, You must have heard the phone call Lu Che made to me. The person that bribed people in the industry to spread rumors about you was Tang Xian. She must have been building up her connections in the industry for some time. Because I know she's starting to pull out all the stops, I need to cut the Gordian knot. In the past, I didn't have time. But now, I will take good care of you and help Mom at the same time. Don't tire yourself out. Mo Ting did not have any other requests. He knew that Tongning had made the right decision. Although Xia Yuling could suppress Tang Xian, she couldn't stop Tang Xian's mind from working hard. Don't worry, when have I ever disappointed you? Tongning wrapped her arms around Mo Ting's neck and gently planted a kiss on his charming lips. Meanwhile, after returning to Hairue, Tang Jingxian originally wanted to tell Xia Jingyi that his grandfather wanted to see her. But, just as he was about to push open the door, he heard Xia Jingyi talking to another man. Why are you here? Are you afraid that your little lover will hear you? The man revealed an evil smile. Did you really think you could marry into a wealthy family? Don't forget, you are still my woman. You once tried so hard to woo me. Yet, because of a little lover, are you going to give up on the love you've had for so many years? Don't spout nonsense, Xia Jingyi immediately warned. Okay, I won't spout nonsense. I simply want to see the expression on your little lover's face when he finds out about your true colors. After speaking, the man turned to leave. At this time, Tang Jingxian immediately took a few steps back and pretended he hadn't heard anything as he turned to enter Xia Jingyi's waiting room. After sending the man off, Xia Jingyi saw Tang Jingxian and her expression changed. She quickly explained, This is my classmate. He came to catch up with me today. Tang Jingxian nodded his head as he watched the man leave. A man that exuded a dangerous aura and was extremely handsome. How could he possibly be a classmate? However, Tang Jingxian did not dare to believe it. Plus, he had no evidence. So, he had no choice but to endure for now. Of course, the news that he had prepared earlier was immediately swallowed back into his stomach. Chapter 487. Didn't you have some good news for me on the phone just now? Xia Jingyi asked gently as she pulled Tang Jingxuan's gaze back to her. I'm about to release a new album, Tang Jingxian replied with a smile as he turned back to Xia Jingyi. I knew our heavenly King Luo would become more and more popular. Tang Jingxian tried his best to maintain his smile, but he felt he wouldn't be able to hide it any longer. Just as he began to feel like he was being hypocritical, Song Yinshu suddenly appeared behind them and said in an official tone, Luo Xing, Vice President Fong wants us to go to his office right now. Tang Jingxian suddenly felt relieved as he said to Xia Jingyi, I'm going to have a meeting first. Let's talk later. Okay. Xia Jingyi nodded her head thoughtfully. Afterwards, Tang Jingxian turned around. However, he never imagined. The once kind and pure Xia Jingyi had a side to her that he had yet to discover. Song Yinshu glanced at Xia Jingyi and followed behind Tang Jingxian. After entering the elevator, she asked, If you're unhappy, why are you hiding it? Because I don't want to be blinded by jealousy and suspicion. I need proof. Vice President Fong didn't call for a meeting. I simply don't think you can continue acting. This is the difference between you and your sister. Ningjia has never been merciful towards those that hurt her and has never been afraid, Song Yinshu said as she looked at Tang Jingshuan's back. Song Yinshu said as she looked at Tang Jingshuan's back. Her sensitivity to other people's emotions is something that you will never be able to catch up to. You may not have noticed, and as her manager, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Xia Jingyi really isn't suitable for you. Tang Jingxian sighed. If you need anything, let me know. I can think of a way to help you. Thank you. Tang Jingxian nodded as he left Hai Rui with a confused mind. However, on the way back, he almost collided with another car more than once because he was distracted. He wanted to know, if Tongning was in the same situation, how would she deal with it? In the end, Tang Jingxian turned around and headed towards Hyatt Regency. The person who opened the door was Imo Ting. As soon as he saw Tang Jingxian, he raised an eyebrow slightly, but did not stop him from entering. Tongning's stomach was already slightly protruding. So, as soon as Tang Jingxian saw it, he pointed to it in shock. Sister 3, you. I'm pregnant. Tongning replied as she lay on the sofa. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Tang Jingxian immediately sat down beside Tongning. When did this happen? Thinking about what Tang Xian had done in the past, Tongning's expression turned cold. But, in the end, she still told Tang Jingxian everything, including the truth behind her retreat. After Tang Jingxian heard this, he slammed his fist on the glass table and said angrily, I really didn't expect you to experience so many things during this period of time. Big sister. No, she's not my big sister. That woman did so many disgusting things behind my back. Do Grandpa and Mom know about it? I'll go back and tell them now. Other than you and Sister Chun, everyone else knows. Plus, I might return to the Tang family to clean up the family. You need to forget everything I told you today and pretend nothing happened. But I have my ways. Everyone in the family knows what kind of person she is. She simply feels like she's putting on an act, Tongning said with a wise expression. Okay then. Tang Jingxian nodded his head. In the end, he calmed down and thought for a moment before he remembered why he was here. However, when he thought about Tongning's situation, he didn't know what to say. However, how could his thoughts be hidden from Tongning's eyes? One doesn't come to a temple for no reason. Speak. Tang Jingxian pondered for a moment before he finally looked into Tongning's eyes and asked, Sister 3, what do you think of Xia Jingyi? I don't really understand her, Tongning replied straightforwardly. Why are you suddenly asking this? What if I told you that I was with her? After hearing this, Tongning's expression changed. If you thought there was no problem, you wouldn't have come to ask me. Tongning pointed out the crux of the problem. Back when you were being slandered for taking drugs, I already told you that the industry isn't as simple as you think it is. If even you feel there's a problem, why would you bother asking me? Tongning immediately pointed out the crux of the problem. Tang Jingxian fell silent and did not say a word. Tongning was aware that Tang Jingxian was still young and could easily develop feelings for the people around him. But she was happy to see him treat them with sincerity. But if he was to be used and hurt, she would make him pay a heavy price. Sis, you know that I rarely fall for others. If it's really as you think, then it doesn't change the fact that you've met a jerk. You are a member of the Tang family. Tongning said straightforwardly. Go ahead and verify it. Whether it's a misunderstanding or the truth, you need to understand it first. Tang Jingxian nodded his head. Just as he was about to continue chatting with Tongning, Imo Ting walked over to the two and ordered them to leave. Your sister needs to rest. As soon as Tang Jingxian remembered that Tongning was pregnant, he immediately nodded his head and did not refute. Okay, I'll leave now. Tongning wanted to laugh, but she was too embarrassed to do so. So, after Tang Jingxian left, she pouted. Can't you be a little gentler with him? He came to steal my wife's time. Why should I be gentle? Imo Ting asked. Tongning couldn't help but let out a laugh. I can't do anything about you. After leaving Hyatt Regency, Tang Jingxian directly drove over to Xia Jingyi's apartment. As soon as he arrived, he noticed her door was ajar and a cry for help could be heard coming from inside. Tang Jingxian immediately pushed open the door and entered. That was when he saw the classmate that Xia Jingyi mentioned earlier in the day was trying to snatch her handbag. Luoxing, You came at the right time. Hurry and catch him. As soon as the man saw Tang Jingshuan's hand, he immediately threw his handbag aside and ran out the door. Xia Jingyi was so frightened that she sat on the floor and sobbed. What is this all about? He really is my classmate. He said he was coming to see me today, but he followed me all the way to my apartment and tried to snatch my things, Xia Jingyi explained. Tang Jingxian helped Xia Jingyi up and placed her on the sofa. However, Tang Jingxian did not say anything to comfort her. After making sure Xia Jingyi fell asleep, he looked around the apartment and left. How could he have the mood to return home and have tea while being followed? Shouldn't he have fought back as soon as the door was broken in? Plus, he knew Xia Jingyi had been home for a while. So, why was he only snatched now? Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility that the man only knocked on the door halfway through, but Chapter 488. Recently, the entertainment industry seemed to have returned to a peaceful state because Tongning had faded out of everyone's sight. This made all the artists that previously criticized her feel relieved. However, they had no idea that Hai Rui's revenge would always come at the end. In fact, it was perfectly reasonable. Not only was it impossible to retaliate, it was impossible to find any loopholes. For example, an actor that had already agreed on a game endorsement deal, but the game company suddenly changed their spokesperson without even giving them a heads up. Another example was a singer that was currently participating in a variety show and placed well, but was eliminated from the previous episode of the competition. There were countless examples like this, but whether it was the game industry or the production team, they were always able to find fault with these people, making it impossible for them to associate them with Hai Rui. So, they would never know that Hai Rui's vice president had a name list on his desk. The names that had been crossed off were those that had said goodbye to the industry forever. Others may not have noticed, but Tongning's fans were secretly observing them. After all, they had long viewed these people as scum and were always looking for an opportunity to cause trouble. But, in the past 2 days, they realized that accidents kept happening to these people. Oh God, did Hai Rui do this? Isn't it a little too clean and quiet? Can I say that it's satisfying? One of the female singers that previously insulted Tongning is currently kneeling on the ground and begging her manager not to give up on her. I knew Emoting wouldn't let things go so easily. Is this what they mean by making them disappear one by one? Cool. Someone even publicly apologized to Tongning. Too bad. Emoting doesn't like people that know they will cause trouble, yet ignore the consequences. What can he do if he wants to die? The fan club was currently in a heated discussion. Some of the younger fans wanted to brag about Emoting's abilities, but there were also wise old fans that tried to dissuade them. Emoting and Tongning are used to being two-faced. I think we should learn from them and keep a low profile in case outsiders find fault with us. I agree. Me too. As long as everyone knows that President Emo is already getting his revenge, it will be enough. That way, the remaining people will feel threatened and have a sense of danger. Exactly. How they schemed against Tongning in the past, they should be paid back. This world talks about karma and retribution. In the end, Fang Yu, who had been instructed to maintain order in the group, made a shushing gesture. Afterwards, everyone fell silent and followed suit. Fang Yu couldn't help but smile warmly. She was indeed a fan of Tongning. She understood immediately. Some of the people that had framed Tongning had already come begging for mercy. However, in all the years that Hai Rui had been around, they had never tolerated such dirty things. Did they not know they would end up like this? At that time, they were simply taking a gamble. They didn't think Hai Rui would carry out such a large-scale revenge. However, they were wrong. No matter how many people there were, Hai Rui would not let them go. Vice President Fang, an artist from another agency, is kneeling in front of our office, Fang Yu's secretary said as she entered the office. Ask her to leave. If she's in trouble, she should look for her own manager, not Hai Rui. Fang Yu instructed without blinking. Directly contact her management company to come pick her up. Even if she doesn't find it embarrassing, Hai Rui will. Yes, I'll do it right away. Fang Yu did not think they were going overboard. After all, when these people tried to frame Tongning, they did not think they were going overboard either. They were simply giving an eye for an eye. That day, after Tang Jingxian returned home from Xia Jingyi's apartment, he ran into Tang Xian in the living room. Jingxian, I made you some supper. Do you want to have some? Tang Jingxian looked at Tang Xian's face. He had never seen her so ugly before. In fact, he did not even want to say a word to her as he directly returned to his room. Because Tang Jingxian had always been like this, Tang Xian did not suspect that he already knew about her scandal. Everything was going according to plan. The day after tomorrow, Xia Yuling was due to leave for Switzerland. She had to seize the opportunity. Elder Tang noticed Tang Jingshuan's expression was a little strange, so he called him into the study room. To prevent Tang Xian from eavesdropping, the grandfather and grandson sat on the balcony. Grandfather, why didn't you tell me and sister too about Tang Xian? Did Xiaoning tell you? Elder Tang asked as he held onto his walking stick. I saw that she was pregnant, but she didn't dare to announce it to the public because her own sister once tried to remove her uterus. Tang Jingxian scoffed. I simply want to know why Tang Xian and I have the same mother. Why is there such a big difference between us? Elder Tang sneered as he looked into the distance. She's already trying to harm Yuling. Then, it's none of your business. We know what to do, Elder Tang replied. If it wasn't for the child in her stomach, I would have already beaten her to death in the Tang family ancestral hall. Grandfather, I actually already have someone I like, but Tang Jingxian gathered his courage and said, but she may be different to what I imagined. Especially after discovering Tang Xian's true colors, Tang Jingxian finally understood how scary women could be. Some people wouldn't treat you sincerely just because you were kind. My grandson, you don't have to worry about not having a woman. You can decide for yourself what to do. Elder Tang handed the initiative to Tang Jingxian. But before he ended the conversation, he asked, by the way, who was the beautiful woman I saw the last time I visited you at the office? Beautiful woman? Are you talking about my new manager? She's the Song Yanshu that used to take care of Sister 3. Tang Jingxian replied calmly as he thought of Song Yanshu. He had no idea why Elder Tang was suddenly asking this question. She's not bad. She's a mature and careful child. Elder Tang stood up. She could tell with one glance that I was afraid of the elevator, so she helped me up the stairs. Oh, Tang Jingxian nodded. You might want to consider it. Hearing this, Tang Jingxian finally realized what Elder Tang meant. He had his eyes on Song Yanshu as his granddaughter-in-law. Tang Jingxian calmed down. Song Yanshu had the ability to make people calm down. In fact, whenever he thought about Xia Jingyi, he didn't feel so bad anymore. The next day, Xia Jingyi applied for a day off from work. She did not mention where she was going, so Tang Jingxian thought he might discover something if he followed her. He didn't like the feeling of being suspicious of others, but, as Tongning said, there were some things that needed to be clarified. Chapter 489. Xia Jingyi was born into a family of scholars. Logically speaking, she wouldn't want to be with him because of his identity. But Tang Jingxian pulled out his phone and gave Song Yanshu a phone call. Yanshu, don't plan any events or appointments tomorrow. I have some personal matters to attend to. No problem. But I have one request. Remember your identity. I understand. Tang Jingxian hung up the phone, but he sat in his room and let his imagination run wild for an entire night. He thought about how Tang Xian had harmed Tongning and thought about how Xia Jingyi had behaved. Tang Jingxian had never felt that the people around him were so scary. The next day, Tang Jingxian watched as Xia Jingyi drove away from the apartment. He followed behind her until halfway there. The so-called classmate she had been talking about came out of a small villa and naturally got into Xia Jingyi's car. Tang Jingshuan's hands, which were holding onto the steering wheel, suddenly tightened as the flames in his eyes darkened. However, he continued to follow behind them without a change in expression until Xia Jingyi's car entered a graveyard. On a steep hill, Tang Jingxian saw Xia Jingyi and the man holding onto flowers as they approached a tombstone. Of course, Tang Jingxian couldn't hear their conversation, but the man simply grabbed onto Xia Jingyi's waist, pulled her into his embrace, and kissed her passionately. Meanwhile, Xia Jingyi did not resist at all. Seeing this, Tang Jingshuan's chest couldn't help but expand. There was no need to say anything else. Tang Jingxian directly turned around. At this time, the man noticed Tang Jingxian and gave Xia Jingyi an evil smile. Your little lover seems to have seen us being intimate. Xia Jingyi's expression changed as she panicked. She immediately chased after Tang Jingxian and grabbed onto the corner of his shirt. Luo Xing, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. Tang Jingxian pushed her away as his expression turned frighteningly dark. I really have my own difficulties. No matter how big your difficulties are, you don't need to kiss someone to solve them, Tang Jingxian said in a harsh tone. His mother passed away because of me. So, he can ask to kiss you and even sleep with you. Xia Jingyi, don't you think this is ridiculous? I won't reveal what happened today. But, Xia Jingyi, let's end things here. After speaking, Tang Jingxian turned to leave. However, Xia Jingyi burst into tears and pounced on him again. Luo Xing, I truly love you. So, how do you make out with someone else while loving me? What about him? What is his position in your heart? Xia Jingyi took 2 steps back, suddenly unable to speak. I'm her first love. It's normal for her to forget about me. The man chased after them and said coldly, Luo Xing, you saw it too. When I kissed her, she did not resist at all. That's the best proof. I wish you happiness. Tang Jingxian had no intention of lingering. After speaking, he turned around to leave, but Xia Jingyi refused to let go. Luo Xing, can you not give up on me so quickly? This time, Tang Jingxian didn't even bother to reply and quickened his pace. What right did a 2-timing woman have to beg others not to give up? Why are you crying? The man grabbed onto Xia Jingyi's arm and pulled her into his embrace. Don't even think about being rich. Be a good girl and marry me. After all, you slandered me yesterday for trying to steal something from you. I'm going to torture you for the rest of your life. Xia Jingyi cried as she watched Tang Jingxian leave. Her heart ached, but she couldn't deny the fact that even though the man beside her had treated her badly, she still had feelings for him. Some things were like an apple that looked good on the outside, but was already rotten on the inside. Tang Jingxian was shocked and his heart was in a mess. In one breath, he arrived at Hyatt Regency. The only people he still trusted in this world were Tongning and Emoting. As soon as he stepped through the front door, he lay on Tongning's lap in low spirits. Seeing him like this, Tongning could roughly guess what had happened. It's okay, sis. Why do you think there are so many selfish people in this world that would lie to others for the sake of their own selfish desires? Tang Jingxian asked in a dull voice. Why do you treat it so naturally? Why are you begging for forgiveness? It's all your fault for being blind. Of course, your sister has also been blind before. Hurry and get up. Don't squeeze your nephew, Tongning urged. Just as Tang Jingxian was about to get up, he received a phone call from Song Yinshu. Xia Jingyi has been looking for you everywhere. What happened? Yinshu, from now on, just hang up on Xia Jingyi. She's 2-timing. Are you okay? Song Yinshu asked in a gentle voice. I'm just a little tired and need some peace and quiet. After speaking, Tang Jingxian was about to hang up the phone, but Tongning grabbed it from his hand and said, He's with me? He's with me. Come and get him. Sister 3. Yinshu is a trustworthy person. Haven't you noticed? Don't hide this matter from her and deal with it on your own. Give her the respect she deserves. If something happens, she will know how to handle the PR. Tongning explained patiently. You're a man. Can't you take a little setback? You can come and look for me this time, but do you want to come every time? Your brother-in-law is going to break your legs. Tang Jingxian fell silent and did not speak. Then, she covered her mouth and took a deep breath. Only then did she calm down. Sis, I'm sorry. It's nothing. It's just a small setback. Apart from this, she really wanted to see the once innocent Xia Jingyi once again. Was the Tang family cursed? He was always being stepped on. However, right now, this was still a small matter, because tonight, it would immediately become a big matter. In order to take revenge on Xia Jingyi and Tang Jingxian, Xia Jingyi's man revealed their fiancé relationship to the media. He even claimed that Tang Jingxian had secretly seduced his fiancée. Actually, the other party had already planned this from the start. Xia Jingyi not only caused him to lose his mother, but she also caused him to fall in love with someone else. Even if it was someone else, they wouldn't be able to accept it. As Tang Jingxian and Xia Jingyi had worked together many times, there were many photos of them together on the internet. This kind of scandal, to a popular heavenly king, it was easy to imagine how destructive it was. But there was no way Song Yinshu would allow the other party's scheme to succeed. So, after discussing things with Fang Yu, she quickly responded and admitted that they were once in a relationship. Afterwards, Song Yinshu revealed that Tang Jingxian was the one that had been lied to, and that he had suffered a huge blow. But, according to the current situation, it was impossible for the public to stand on Tang Jingshuan's side. After all, Xia Jingshuan's fiancé had already spoken out. Wasn't this because he couldn't stand it anymore? Chapter 490. Luo Xing was a singer that came out of nowhere. After being single-handedly trained by Hai Rui, he became a superstar. But no one knew his true identity. No one knew he was the fourth master of Tangkor, and no one knew he was Tongning's younger brother. Now that he was revealed to have stepped between Xia Jingyi and another man and become a loathed mistress, his public image was dealt a devastating blow. After all, he wasn't Tongning. A simple rumor was enough to return him to his original state. Inside the waiting room, Tang Jingxian couldn't help but laugh as he looked at the hottest news. Behind him, Song Yinshu suddenly said after a moment of silence, "It's okay. Hai Rui is trying their best to salvage the situation. I don't mind that my image has been destroyed. It's just that I've been hurt, so I don't want to accept it." Song Yinshu replied calmly, "Luo Xing, you need to understand your identity. Not only are you the new superstar of Hai Rui, you are also the fourth master of the Tang family. No matter what your identity is, I will definitely clear your name." Tang Jingxian remained silent for a moment before he finally thanked her. Not everyone could lend a helping hand at a time like this. Based on this, Tang Jingxian was certain that Song Yinshu was a trustworthy person, just like Tongning had said. "If you really want to thank me, then pull yourself together and be as strong as your sister." Song Yinshu suddenly revealed a rare smile. "To be honest, both you and Ning Jia aren't suited to survive in the entertainment industry. But Ning Jia has the ability to change the rules of survival in the entertainment industry. As for you, if my sister can do it, I can do it too," Tang Jingxian replied confidently. Song Yinshu tilted her head and looked at him with a smile. "I trust you." Tang Jingxian also looked at Song Yinshu. He was supposed to feel awkward because he felt like no one would believe him. But the look in Song Yinshu's eyes told him that she truly believed him. Because of the scandal, Tang Jingshuan's travel became a lot more difficult. Song Yinshu tried her best to protect him from the reporters, but they continued to forcefully drag her away. He never imagined that the person that was protecting him from the storm would be a woman. Didn't she know that she was skinny? Seeing Song Yinshu surrounded by layers of reporters, Tang Jingxian couldn't stand it any longer. He grabbed onto Song Yinshu's hand, pulled her in front of him, and escorted her out of the encirclement. Song Yinshu looked at him in shock and struggled free. "Are you crazy? Do you want things to get more complicated? Do you want me to sit back and watch you get trapped? That's exactly what I want you to do. What if the reporters start spreading rumors about us tomorrow?" Tang Jingxian clenched his teeth and said regardless, "At most, I'll leave this circle. I'll protect her." This time, Song Yinshu did not resist until they boarded the van. Song Yinshu's assistant immediately escorted the couple out of the area. After they arrived at a safe place, Song Yinshu said, "You are too stubborn. Yinshu, I entered this industry because I love to sing, not because of fame or status." Song Yinshu did not refute him any further. She simply sighed. "I will definitely prove your innocence, no matter the cost." Tang Jingxian did not say another word. He simply made a decision in his heart. At this moment, Song Yinshu had to admit that she couldn't understand Tang Jingxian. After returning home, Tang Jingxian headed straight to his room. Meanwhile, just as Song Yinshu was about to leave the Tang household, she received a phone call from Tongning. Ningjia, I've already seen how the situation is developing, Tongning said to Song Yinshu. Get Xia Jingyi to step out and clarify the situation. Otherwise, the fourth master of the Tang family is not someone to be trifled with. If she still wants to keep her current status and doesn't want her reputation to be ruined, she needs to understand the situation in front of her. After hearing Tongning's words, Song Yinshu froze for a few seconds. From what she knew, as long as something had nothing to do with her family or loved ones, Tongning would not retaliate. She was able to tolerate being wronged. But, as long as it involved Mo Ting, her friends and family, her ruthlessness would be revealed from the depths of her bones. Okay, I will speak to Xia Jingyi about this matter. Be careful not to let others gossip about you, and allow Xia Jingyi to use you, Tongning warned in seriousness. Don't worry, Ningjia, I know what to do. Song Yinshu understood immediately. After putting down her phone, Tongning leaned back against the cushion behind her. At this time, Mo Ting suddenly reached out his hand and held onto her shoulder. Even though you've retreated from the industry, you still have to care about so many things. Tongning turned her head and looked at Mo Ting with a gentle smile. I got to where I am today because of you, because of myself, and because I have the ability to protect the people around me. Xia Jingyi's incident had a huge impact on Jingxian. The feeling of being betrayed and slandered. I understand it better than he does. That's enough. Do you think I don't know what you're like? You don't need to explain. Mo Ting said as he placed his hand on Tongning's slightly protruding stomach. You can seek revenge, but you can't tire yourself out. If you feel like you can't handle it, then let me do it. You? Forget it. It's too destructive. I'm afraid Xia Jingyi won't be able to handle it. Tongning was well aware that as long as Mo Ting made a move, he would eliminate the root of the problem. He didn't like to leave any loose ends. Let me do it. In our family, you are the boss. You have the final say. Mo Ting placed his lips against Tongning's hair and gently sniffed. It was like he was absorbing all the nutrients in his body. Tongning closed her eyes in satisfaction. Her heart still felt excited at the thought of being close to the person she loved. It was a feeling that she would never get tired of. After receiving Tongning's reminder, Song Yinshu contacted Xia Jingyi's manager that afternoon. Because of the relationship between Song Yinshu and Tongning, the manager did not dare to be negligent. So, they arranged for Song Yinshu and Xia Jingyi to meet in the waiting room. Xia Jingyi knew why Song Yinshu had called her. So, she looked into the mirror and said, I know why you called me. But, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Oh, so you know, Song Yinshu smiled. Song Yinshu gave a slight smile before her tone became a little sharper. Then, I'm sure you know deep down that you're trying to help, right? Xia Jingyi's right hand, which was holding onto her mascara, trembled. Luo Xing was deceived by you. First, you two-timed him, and now you're slandering him. Are you trying to help? Xia Jingyi's expression turned a little ugly. You and I are both well aware of Luo Xing's identity. Don't forget whose brother he is. Xia Jingyi, I'm not asking for your help today. I'm asking you to step out and clarify everything. Otherwise, if things get out of hand, you will be the one to get hurt. Song Yinshu sneered. I can't step out because even if Luo Xing isn't an artist, he is still the young master of the Tang family. On the other hand, I have nothing. He is the young master of the Tang family. That's not a reason for you to slander him. Just because he has money, does that mean he should give in to you? Why should he? Chapter 491. Stop talking. What can I do? Shang Jiaoyang won't let me off, and he won't let Luo Xing off either. Whether I make a move or not, the result will be the same. Miss Song, please leave. Xia Jingyi turned and glared at Song Yinshu. Her heart was already a mess. The meaning of her words was clear enough. That was, she couldn't help him. In reality, when Song Yinshu arrived, she had already expected this result. However, she still wanted to give it a try. She wanted to see if the woman Tang Jingxian once liked had a shred of conscience and courage. But, after hearing Xia Jingyi's words, Song Yinshu laughed. Since you've already given up on Luo Xing, you better not regret what happens next. After speaking, Song Yinshu straightened her body from the makeup table and headed for the door. Xia Jingyi slowly averted her gaze. At this moment, her eyes were filled with self-ridicule. She understood Tang Jingxian. No matter what, he was a kind person and wouldn't be ruthless towards her. But Ruan Shiwen would. However, Xia Jingyi would only find out later how wrong her judgment had been. After leaving Xia Jingyi's waiting room, Song Yinshu gave Tongning another phone call to clarify Xia Jingyi's stance. Tongning was silent for a few seconds before she replied, "Does that mean, from now on, we don't need to worry about this woman?" "Yes, Ningjia, but I'm afraid Luo Xing." "Don't worry, he won't turn back," Tongning said confidently. "Yinshu, go discuss with Feng Yu. Tell him to tell everyone the truth about Jingxian and Xia Jingyi's relationship from start to finish. The truth is logic. It will always hold more water than a lie." "Okay, Ningjia, I'll get to it immediately." Since Xia Jingyi refused to make a decision, she had no choice but to force her to make a stand. Even though Xia Jingyi didn't necessarily speak up for Tang Jingxian. So, with Feng Yu leading the way, Hai Rui's PR once again explained the entire process of their relationship in detail to the public. They also emphasized that Tang Jingxian was also a victim and tried their best to restore his public image. However, this kind of gossip in the entertainment industry has been rotten. The audience does not care who is innocent, and most of them have the mentality of watching the fun. To put it simply, there was only one sentence to sum it up. None of the three are good birds. Luo Xing's foresight can't be that bad, right? Her fiancé couldn't take it anymore and stood out to make it public. How can it be fake? I think the main character, Xia Jingyi, should step out and say a few words, right? Hai Rui has been emphasizing that Xia Jingyi lied to Luo Xing, and I think it's true. After all, they are both artists under Hai Rui. If it wasn't for the truth, why would Hai Rui step out to clarify for Luo Xing? If I was Xia Jingyi's fiancé, I would directly castrate Luo Xing. How dare he play with a man's wife? Isn't that a little too much? He probably caught them in the act. How could this kind of person be worthy of his fans spending money to fight for him? Using the fans' money to flirt with people in the industry. How disgusting. The male celebrities in the entertainment industry always make me lose my sense of morality. The two of them have gone overboard this time. With the increase in attention, the negative impact on Luo Xing grew. In fact, he had no choice but to postpone the release date of his film. Tongning sat at home and gave Xia Yuling a phone call. "Mom, find an excuse to go to Switzerland after Jingshuan's matter is resolved. I'm also worried about Jingxian. Everyone in the agency is talking about him." "Okay, I will find an excuse to postpone the release and let Tangxian worry for another 2 days." Tongning hung up the phone and looked calmly at the drizzling sky. It was about time. "Jingyi, Vice President Fong spoke to me a moment ago. The agency has arranged for a press conference for you to clarify everything," Xia Jingyi's manager said in a strict tone. If it was another agency, they would have tried to help both parties out of their predicament to protect their artists. But this is Hai Rui. President Mo has zero tolerance for things like this. So, for the sake of the bigger picture, I suggest you cooperate. At least clear Luo Xing's name first and protect him. After this incident blows over, we will find another chance to start over." "So, is Hai Rui forcing me?" Xia Jingyi sneered as she asked her manager. As Tongning's brother, Luo Xing can't be abandoned. "So, are they going to sacrifice me?" "You know better than anyone who is sacrificing who." Xia Jingyi's manager's voice turned cold. "Luo Xing has treated you so well, but what about you? All I need to do is clarify everything, right?" Xia Jingyi changed the topic as her manager looked at her with an incomprehensible light. 3 p.m. Xia Jingyi's manager had nothing else to say to her as she left the waiting room. Xia Jingyi held back her tears as she sat in her chair. No one could understand her current situation. It wasn't that she didn't want to save Luo Xing, but if Ruan Shiwen was to reveal what happened all those years ago, then she would be completely destroyed. Even if Luo Xing left the entertainment industry, he would still be the young master of the Tang family. But she couldn't afford to lose anything. "So, I'm sorry, Luo Xing," Xia Jingyi thought to herself. For the sake of the press conference that afternoon, Tongning arrived at the agency quietly and personally met with Fang Yu and Song Yinshu. Ningjia, Xia Jingyi has already compromised. She will clarify everything for Luoxing, Song Yinshu said as she followed behind Tongning. After hearing this, Tongning did not respond. She had never relied on gambling to win, so she didn't trust Xia Jingyi that much. Go make your preparations. Okay, Song Yinshu replied before she left Fang Yu's office, leaving Tongning and Fang Yu to look at each other. As good friends and comrades, Fang Yu could read Tongning's mind through her eyes. You don't trust Xia Jingyi. Whether I trust her or not, I can't place all my bets on her. I can let something happen to her, but I can't let anything happen to Jingxian, Tongning replied coldly. What information do you already have in your hands? I'm sure you've already gathered enough information from Longjie. Let's organize our resources and Luoxing will be fine. Fang Yu pulled out some documents from his office shelf and handed them to Tongning. I understand you. You only did this to stop Xia Jingyi from hiding. Exposing her in front of everyone is the only way to help Luoxing get back at her. I've never been a kind person. Tongning looked at Fang Yu with a deeper meaning. If she wants to bully my family, she will need to get past me first. Who can get past you? Fang Yu couldn't help but laugh. There were so many people in Hai Rui, including Hua Jingjing. Which one of them hadn't been subdued by Tongning? When it came to Tongning, no one dared to go against her. So, this afternoon, there was bound to be a good show. Chapter 492. Regarding the scandal of Luoxing being a mistress, the two men involved had already expressed their stance. Now, all that was left was the woman's stance. Xia Jingyi's words seemed to be related to Luoxing's future as a star. It had a huge impact on him. Xia Jingyi wasn't stupid. She couldn't afford to offend Wan Shiwen, and she couldn't resist Hai Rui. So, all she could do was choose a middle ground. Of course, she thought, this would minimize the damage to everyone. 3 p.m., Xia Jingyi will be holding a press conference. She will clarify everything for you, Song Yinshu said as she stood behind Tang Jingxian in the waiting room. Song Yinshu said as she stood behind Tang Jingxian. Because of President Mo's pressure, she doesn't dare to act recklessly. Tang Jingxian looked at the busy streets with a look of ridicule. Do you trust her? Song Yinshu listened quietly without saying a word. Deep down, there was no way she could trust Xia Jingyi. But she had her own plans and ways to protect Tang Jingxian. In a moment, you stay in the waiting room. I'll go watch over Xia Jingyi. Tang Jingxian nodded his head. Beneath his thick eyelashes, it was hard to tell what he was feeling. 2:50 p.m. The reporters arrived at Hai Rui's ballroom. This time, they were holding a press conference on Hai Rui's own turf. The female lead of the Luoxing mistress scandal has finally spoken. I really want to know what's going on. I'm here to see how Hai Rui handles their PR. I wonder how the usually flawless Hai Rui plans to protect Luoxing this time. Don't you guys think Luoxing has always been a mystery? I can't believe no one knows about his family background. Amidst the discussions of the reporters and the cameras, it didn't take long before Xia Jingyi, under the protection of her manager, made her way onto the stage. It was obvious that because of the scandal, Xia Jingyi's face was filled with exhaustion. Although she was wearing heavy makeup, it wasn't hard to see her sunken eyes. Let's begin. Xia Jingyi's manager reminded Xia Jingyi that she had already prepared a script. Now, all she had to do was memorize it. For Xia Jingyi, this shouldn't be a difficult task. Xia Jingyi turned her head and glanced at her manager before turning back to the reporters. I know you guys have been paying attention to the scandal between Luoxing and me. I never expected things to get to this point. I'm standing here today to prove Luoxing's innocence. Hearing that Xia Jingyi was going to prove Luoxing's innocence, the manager and Song Yinshu let out a sigh of relief. But, a second later, their expressions turned serious as they listened to Xia Jingyi's words. Luoxing and I don't have that kind of relationship. My fiancé simply misunderstood. I've never betrayed my fiancé. Luoxing and I are innocent. But, the outside world has captured an intimate photo of you and Luoxing, a reporter asked. I've been working with him for a long time, so of course there will be photos of us together. But, This isn't evidence of an affair between us, but Hai Rui has already announced that there was indeed a relationship issue between the two of you. The reporter directly used Hai Rui's PR to slap Xia Jingyi in the face. The agency has misunderstood. Luo Xing's feelings are one-sided, and I've never responded to them. I know he treats me well, but I'm sorry, I already have a fiancé. So, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind Luo Xing to behave himself. One-sided love, behave himself. Hearing these words, Song Yinshu and Xia Jingyi's manager subconsciously furrowed their brows. Are you trying to say that Hai Rui's PR lied to you? The reporter asked. I know what I've said today has gone against Hai Rui's intentions. But, I'm sorry, my manager, I can't take the blame for Luo Xing. I am just a weak woman. I can't handle this much pressure. So, please don't force me. As soon as these words left her mouth, the entire venue was in an uproar. Xia Jingyi's words implied that Hai Rui was forcing her to step out and clarify Luo Xing's scandal. Xia Jingyi's manager's expression was ugly as she looked at Xia Jingyi in a new light. However, just as she was about to step onto the stage and drag Xia Jingyi away, Song Yinshu suddenly stopped her and said coldly, "Let me handle it." Xia Jingyi's manager froze for a moment. Seeing the cold expression on Song Yinshu's face, she nodded her head. Afterwards, Song Yinshu walked over to the stage and grabbed the microphone from Xia Jingyi's hand. She then turned to the media and said, "She's not telling the truth. You are Luo Xing's manager. Of course you will speak up for him. The truth is, while she was dating Luo Xing, she was also with another man. And Luo Xing has always been the victim," Song Yinshu said in a powerful voice. "It's one thing for you to accuse Luo Xing after being exposed, yet you're planning to sacrifice Luo Xing to protect yourself? I've seen cheap people before, but I've never seen someone as cheap as you. So, can your words be trusted? Of course, it's because I also like Luo Xing." Song Yinshu said bravely. "That's why I pay attention to his every move. I know every detail about your dates. Do you want me to expose the location of your dates and let the reporters find out about it? Luo Xing has no feelings for me, so I gladly accept him and continue to be his work partner. But he's not the type to destroy others. Otherwise, there's no way he wouldn't accept me. Why should he accept you?" Xia Jingyi asked curiously with a hint of ridicule in her eyes. "Why?" Song Yinshu sneered. "Because my surname is Song and my parents are both diplomats. If Luo Xing really has a problem with his personality, what reason would he have to reject someone with a family background like mine? I can do a lot of things for him. What can you possibly do for him? You come from a third-rate family, yet you're cheating on him. It's obvious what your upbringing is like." Hearing this, Xia Jingyi's expression suddenly changed. "If you want to slander Luo Xing, then let's see the truth. Xia Jingyi, remember every single word you've said today. I'm going to show you how evil your heart really is. From today onwards, Luo Xing will be under my protection. After this, I will reveal all the details of your relationship to the media. Since you're so shameless, then I will let everyone personally verify the truth." As Song Yinshu said these words, her tone was firm and powerful. Her words set off 1,000 waves in Xia Jingyi's heart. The daughter of a diplomat. She was actually the daughter of a diplomat. She was even willing to expose her family background to protect Luo Xing. "So, I'm going to give you one last chance. Are you going to tell the truth in front of the media?" Chapter 493. No one expected a confrontation like this. Not only Tang Jingxian, even Tongning did not expect that Song Yinshu would step out so bravely and reveal her family background in order to protect Tang Jingxian. She also did not expect that she would be so determined. The press conference suddenly fell into a stalemate. With the addition of Song Yinshu, Xia Jingyi began to panic. Things seemed to have spiraled out of her control. Song Yinshu looked at Xia Jingyi calmly as she patiently waited for her answer. Meanwhile, all the cameras in the room were pointed at Xia Jingyi. "Speak! Speak!" One of the reporters was getting impatient as he shouted out loud. At this time, Xia Jingyi suddenly stuttered, I want to know how you could say that Luo Xing has a one-sided crush on you. Faced with Song Yinshu's aggressiveness, Xia Jingyi was forced to take a few steps back. Everyone could see Xia Jingyi's attitude. Just as Xia Jingyi was forced into a dead end, a man suddenly appeared at the entrance of Hai Rue. This man was Xia Jingyi's fiancé, Ruan Shiwen. I trust her. The media turned around in unison. Although Ruan Shiwen was being held back by a few bodyguards, he still managed to struggle his way to the entrance of the press conference. Xia Jingyi was a little surprised as she quickly stepped off the stage and warned the bodyguards, "Let him go." Afterwards, Xia Jingyi pounced into Ruan Shiwen's arms and burst into tears. "I really didn't betray you. I really didn't get together with Luo Xing." "I know." Ruan Shiwen gently patted her on the back comfortingly. "I know you've been wronged." After speaking, Ruan Shiwen shielded Xia Jingyi and said to the media, "If you want to clear Luo Xing's name, don't do it to my fiancé. If you have a problem, come at me instead." I bet you guys don't know why Hai Rue is so eager to help Luo Xing, right? Let me tell you. It's because Luo Xing's real name is Tang Jingxian. He is the younger brother of Tangning, the wife of Hai Rue's CEO and the young master of Tangkor. With this background, do you still think he is innocent? Tangning wants to protect her reckless brother, so she pushed all the blame onto my fiancé. What a pity. At the mention of Tangkor, some people didn't react in time. After all, it involved another industry. But, as soon as Tangning's brother was mentioned, everyone erupted in excitement. So Luo Xing's name was Tang Jingxian. It turned out he was the younger brother of superstar Tangning. No wonder Hai Rue is trying so hard to clear Luo Xing's name. It turns out they have this connection. Fuck, he's Tangning's biological brother. This is huge news. Tangning's brother. Are you trying to force the couple into a corner? I really couldn't tell that Luo Xing had such a background. Hearing the discussions of the media, Song Yinshu looked at the couple hugging in the distance and trembled in anger. She had never seen anyone as shameless as the couple in front of her. Hai Rue should ask Luo Xing to speak. That's right. Hiding isn't the same thing. What else is there to say? My fiancé and I have already made things clear. My fiancé has been harassed by Luo Xing. This is the truth. After speaking, Ruan Shiwen tried to drag Xia Jingyi out of the room. But, just as they reached the entrance of the living room, they suddenly stepped back. At this time, the media once again went into an uproar. This aura, this power, was something that only Mo Ting could bring to the people around him. But, to everyone's surprise, the person that appeared this time was Tangning, the Tangning that had just announced her retreat from the industry. She was wearing a loose trench coat and a retro scarf. She did not put on the airs of a celebrity, but she gave off a cold aura that made people not dare to approach her. She was still the same person. No matter where she went, she still caused a commotion. No matter what, she was still the dazzling superstar that everyone could only look up to. It's Tangning. Oh God. It's actually Tangning. This time, the media rushed forward and surrounded the couple. However, facing the reporters, Tangning did not change her calm expression. In fact, she even had an elegant smile on her face. Since I've been dragged into this, if I don't make an appearance, wouldn't it be a waste of the show that you've arranged? Facing Tangning, facing such a powerful Tangning, Xia Jingyi couldn't help but tremble. Meanwhile, Ruan Shiwen shielded Xia Jingyi as he sneered at Tangning. Your brother's scandal has already been exposed. Even if you make an appearance this time, it's useless. I admit, Luo Xing is indeed my brother, Tang Jingxian, Tangning replied honestly. But this doesn't mean he has harassed your woman, Xia Jingyi. Just because he is my brother, does that mean he would do bad things? Isn't it like you hate the rich? Tang Jingxian harassed my fiancé. This is the truth. Have you presented any evidence for your so-called truth? Tangning pressed. Did you catch them in bed? Or did you witness them kissing? If you haven't seen anything, then you assume that your fiancé is cheating on you. You even revealed that you were cuckolded. If you didn't have an ulterior motive, which normal man would do something like that? I know you have a sharp tongue, but I can't win against you. I can only admit defeat, Ruan Shiwen sneered. It's not that I have a sharp tongue. I'm just stating the facts. Plus, Since you already knew that Tang Jingxian was my brother, you still provoked him. That wasn't a smart thing to do. I am protecting my brother today. I am using my power to bully others. What are you going to do about it? Tang Ning asked angrily. He was born into the Tang family. That is his fortune. The fact that he was able to become a superstar is a testament to his talent and luck. Yet, when it comes to you, do you think you are in the right just because you are poor? Tang Ning, you have no right to speak here, Tang Ning scolded, because you have exceeded my understanding of the word human. If you are an animal, then please shut your mouth. Xia Jingyi's expression suddenly turned exceptionally ugly, because she could sense that Tang Ning was truly angry. Tang Ning was angry. Fine, since you want to bully others today, bring it on. I want to see if Hai Rui can swallow us up today. To be honest, if it wasn't for Luo Xing, I wouldn't even bother to say a word to you. After speaking, Tang Ning headed towards the stage. From this moment onwards, Xia Jingyi began to panic. Tang Ning wasn't someone to be trifled with. She had never lost before. What was she planning to do? Chapter 494. Shiwen. Xia Jingyi subconsciously held onto Wan Shiwen's hand. She was so nervous that her palms were covered in cold sweat. Don't be afraid. I want to see how the famous Tang Ning is going to clear her brother's name. Wan Shiwen seemed confident. He refused to believe that Tang Ning knew the truth behind the incident. Tang Ning did not say a word. She simply walked onto the stage and turned to Song Yinshu. You've worked hard. Let me do it. Ning Jia. Nothing will happen, Tang Ning replied confidently with a gentle smile. Song Yinshu turned and glared coldly at the cheating couple below the stage. She then retreated behind Tang Ning, no longer wanting to get involved in the drama. The cameras in the reporter's hands flashed continuously. Meanwhile, in order to hide her stomach, Tang Ning deliberately tilted her body and placed her hands on the stage. Her entire body emitted an unapproachable aura. After a few seconds of silence, she asked Xia Jingyi, if you continue to put on an act and refuse to tell the truth, then I will have to speak. Although Xia Jingyi was nervous, she couldn't imagine what kind of information Tang Ning had in her hands. So, even though her heart was beating like a drum, she still stubbornly replied, We've already told the truth. Really? Tang Ning's voice turned cold. You've already told the truth? Fine. Let's first talk about what happened 12 years ago. Hearing this, Xia Jingyi's eyes grew wide as she stared at Tang Ning. Her throat felt dry as she felt her throat go dry. It seems it's time for me to tell everyone an interesting story. 12 years ago. No. Xia Jingyi suddenly cried out in agitation. I beg of you, don't. Tang Ning's lips curved upwards, but she did not stop. On an afternoon 12 years ago, I was with Luo Xing. Xia Jingyi had no choice but to admit, I was with Luo Xing. Are you satisfied now? Satisfied? If you yell like this, the reporters will think I'm forcing you. Tang Ning laughed calmly. Either you come on stage and tell me the truth, or I'll send you on your way. It's your choice. Xia Jingyi's eyes turned red as her body stiffened. She never imagined Tang Ning would have such a big hold on her. Hold on to the fact that she caused the death of Wan Shiwen's mother. Don't go up. I can't. Xia Jingyi struggled out of Wan Shiwen's embrace and suddenly yelled at him. It's all your fault. Why did you have to force me like this? I already agreed to marry you. So why did you have to frame Luo Xing? I really didn't do it on purpose. I had no choice. After the reporters heard Xia Jingyi's rambling words, they were all shocked. Yes, I hurt Luo Xing and ruined his reputation. But it was all planned by this man. He wants to get revenge on me and Luo Xing. Xia Jingyi pointed at Wan Shiwen and said angrily, I really didn't mean it. I didn't want to hurt Luo Xing. Since you don't want to, why do you still listen to this man? So much so that you even put on such a show at the press conference? Tang Ning pressed on. Let me tell you, it was because you were afraid he would expose you, Tang Ning said confidently. Because 12 years ago, you caused the death of his mother. Hearing this, The reporters quickly pulled out their cameras and recorded the expression on Xiaojingyi's face. So, all you could do was compromise and comply. As for what happened 12 years ago, Hairue will hand over the results of their investigation to the police. As for what your so-called fiancé has done over the years, you can only talk to the police about it. What's there to be afraid of? I'm innocent. Ruan Shiwen still refused to give up. Were you innocent when you were helping someone launder money? Tongning asked as she raised an eyebrow. Ruan Shiwen's expression changed. He never expected Tongning to know something so secretive. Tongning looked at the expression on the man's face and smiled. You can play tricks on anyone you want, but the wrong thing to do is to bully my family. If my brother is in the wrong, I will naturally teach him a lesson. But if someone has ill intentions and tries to slander him, then I'm sorry. I will dig them out and expose them to the public. You wanted to destroy Luoxing, so I destroyed you. It's fair. After speaking, Tongning turned to Song Yinshu. I'll leave the rest to you. Don't worry, Ningjia. Song Yinshu nodded. As expected, when it came to strength, no one could compete with Tongning. Tongning is still Tongning. So cool. I'm so infatuated with Tongning's personality. She's so fucking domineering. Fuck. When I saw the disgusting couples act a moment ago, I thought it was real. Who would have thought that as soon as Tongning arrived, the demons would reveal their true colors? In order not to affect the child in her stomach, Tongning immediately left the stage and left under the protection of security. The reporters followed behind her until she disappeared from the hall. When I get back, I'll have more material to write about. News about Tongning is always trending. Isn't that obvious? Tongning is the correct way to deal with his sister. If you think about it, Luoxing is quite similar to his sister. He obviously has a powerful background, yet he didn't use it to create hype. He's quite a low profile. Song Yinshu returned to her seat and looked down at the two surrounded by reporters. Not long after, the police arrived at the scene. Xiaojingyi was so scared that she took a few steps back. However, the police quickly reached out and held her back. Be honest. We suspect that you were involved in an accidental death 12 years ago. Please come with us to the police station to assist with our investigation. Of course, Ruan Shiwen had no chance of escaping. But being led away by the police in front of everyone made Xiaojingyi feel like she was better off dead. But just as the police escorted them out of the hall, they bumped into Luoxing walking down the stairs. At that moment, Tang Jingxian looked at Xiaojingyi coldly. However, Xiaojingyi grabbed onto the corner of Tang Jingshuan's shirt. Luoxing, save me. Please save me. Tang Jingxian did not move. He simply turned his head slightly, but his gaze made Xiaojingyi's hair stand on end. Why should I? I really had no choice. I've decided to chase after Yinshu. Luoxing, I still love you. Okay. After a cold, okay. Tang Jingxian freed himself from Xiaojingyi's grip and left. From this moment onwards, the person that left a bloody scar in his life would forever disappear from his heart. Without a doubt, Luoxing's incident provided the entertainment industry with a lot of hot news. After the press conference, Tang Jingxian headed straight for the CEO's office. At this time, Song Yinshu was giving Tongning a report on the aftermath. Chapter 495. Thinking about the harsh words he had just said to Xiaojingyi, Tang Jingxian couldn't help but feel a little awkward. Tongning noticed Tang Jingshuan's face turn red, so she put down the magazine in her hands and asked Song Yinshu, "Did you mean what you said earlier about liking Luoxing?" Song Yinshu was a little surprised, but she quickly replied, "I simply wanted to protect Luoxing." I see. Tongning deliberately provoked Tang Jingxian. Look at who you've been with in the past. You obviously have such a good woman by your side, yet you don't know how to cherish her. Tang Jingxian cleared his throat to indicate that he was still present, so his wise sister didn't create any more awkward situations. Song Yinshu's ears turned slightly red, but she calmly moved to one side and gave Tang Jingxian some space. Mo Ting sat in front of his desk dealing with work. His silence meant that Tongning could do whatever she wanted. If Tongning didn't want to do anything, he would take over. Sister 3. Now that everyone in the country knows that Yinshu likes you, how is she supposed to find a boyfriend? Tongning asked as she raised an eyebrow. To protect you, she sacrificed her reputation and bravely stepped forward. But look at what you've done. I will never forget this lesson. Tang Jingxian laughed in self-ridicule. Tang Jingxian laughed at himself. Don't worry, my heart will only get harder and harder. I won't be so naive and stupid from now on. I will do what I want to do wholeheartedly and leave my mark in the music industry. Yinshu, take him home. Tongning understood that this incident had dealt a big blow to Tang Jingxian, so she deliberately asked Song Yinshu to comfort him. Okay. Song Yinshu's expression was businesslike. But after hearing Tang Jingxian say that his heart would only get harder and harder, she couldn't help but feel a ripple in her heart. Tang Jingxian turned around and walked out of the office with Song Yinshu following closely behind. Yinshu, I'm sorry and thank you. Song Yinshu shook her head to show that she didn't mind. Ningjie protected you. I didn't do much. No, your bravery means a lot to me. After speaking, Tang Jingxian led Song Yinshu into the lift. After returning home, Elder Tang sat on the sofa and said, some people are cruel and unscrupulous, but some people are loyal and compassionate. Lao Si, your grandfather has good taste, right? Tang Jingxian smirked but didn't say anything. She has done so much for me. You must choose a gift for me to thank her properly. Got it. Tang Jingxian was exhausted, so he returned to his room. However, he didn't take Elder Tang's words to heart. Lying on his bed, he looked at the glass equipment on his desk. Suddenly, a thought flashed across his mind. This was something he could do for Song Yinshu. At this moment, the room suddenly fell silent. Meanwhile, Tang Xian sat opposite Elder Tang with her hands on her hips. Grandfather, is Auntie Xia going to Switzerland for a business trip tomorrow? A meaningful look flashed across Elder Tang's eyes, but he did not let Tang Xian notice. He simply nodded his head. Yes, it took up a bit of time, but I still have to go. Okay. Tang Xian smiled as she quickly changed the subject. Is Jingxian okay? With Tongning around, nothing bad will happen. At the mention of Tongning, Elder Tang couldn't help but look proud. However, it was also a form of mockery towards Tang Xian. When Tang Jingxian was in trouble, as his elder sister, she did not say anything. Yet, now that the matter had been resolved, she ran over to show her concern. That's good. Tang Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of anger. Everything was about Tongning. Could it be that she, his granddaughter, didn't exist in his heart? She obviously had the blood of the Tang family running through her veins. Since Tang Core was about to undergo a cleansing, she was going to let Tongning and her daughter be arrogant for a few more days. After the cleansing was over and Tang Core was back in her hands, she was going to see how she would torture the two disgusting women. I heard the Zhong family have run into some trouble. Illegal items have been found on the boat. If you need help, let me know. Elder Tang said this to remind Tang Xian that the Zhong family were currently in a difficult situation and could no longer support her. In fact, they might even use her to drain Tang Core. However, Tang Xian simply smiled. It's okay. It will be resolved very quickly. You sure are confident. Elder Tang laughed to himself because he knew who was manipulating everything behind the scenes. Putting aside Tang Xian, there was no way Mo Ting would let the Zhong family get away with scheming against Tongning get away with it. Will it be resolved very quickly? There's no way it can be resolved. How satisfying. Since you're fine, then grandfather can rest assured. Although your in-laws aren't very friendly towards you, you still need to show some concern at a time like this. Yes, grandfather. Elder Tang nodded his head as he stood up and returned to his room. Meanwhile, Tang Xian stared at Elder Tang's back as she thought about how to deal with Xia Yuling. Late at night, Hyatt Regency. As tomorrow's trip was going to be dangerous, Xia Yuling took the initiative to visit Hyatt Regency. She wanted to see Tongning and her precious grandson again. Jingshuan's incident was a close shave. The industry is too messy, Xia Yuling sighed. Mom, where isn't it messy? Tongning was referring to Tang Xian's internal strife in Tang Core. Jingxian has learned his lesson and will naturally grow up. You don't need to worry too much. I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about you, Xia Yuling said as she looked at Tongning's stomach. You're pregnant, yet you still have to worry about everything. Tomorrow's trip to Switzerland will definitely be dangerous. Mom, you need to be 120% vigilant, Tongning said as she rubbed her stomach. How could Imo Ting and I's child be so fragile? Don't worry. I will. Xia Yuling nodded her head in seriousness. Even if it's for the sake of seeing my grandson, I can't let anything happen to myself. Ting has arranged for people to receive you at the airport. No matter what happens, they will help you. I trust Imo Ting. Since Tang Xian wanted to put on an act, then Tongning was going to give her a big one. Otherwise, how could she answer to all of her scheming? After Xia Yuling left, Tongning stared at the door in the distance in a daze. Imo Ting noticed the change in her mood, so he immediately hugged her and asked, "Are you worried?" Tongning shook her head. "With my husband around, I'm not worried." "Then, what's wrong?" "I just suddenly remembered that Tang Xian also has a child in her stomach. She was born without a mother. It's quite pitiful," Tongning sighed. "Really? I'm actually looking forward to the moment the mother and child are separated. After all, getting rid of a tumor is a blessing for the child." Chapter 496. 3 p.m. in Switzerland. Xia Yuling and her assistant stepped out of the airport together. However, before boarding the plane, Tongning had instructed her that Imo Ting's men would be wearing brown coats and black hats. They would also be holding a newspaper in their hands and wearing an Italian badge that indicated Hai Rue's identity. So, as soon as she stepped out of the airport, Xia Yuling immediately noticed Imo Ting's men. Because she was surrounded by her supporters, Xia Yuling relaxed a little and became a lot calmer. "President Xia, that's the person who will be receiving us." Xia Yuling's secretary pointed to a man in a black coat with a badge in his hand. "Go check with him first." "I don't understand Italian," Xia Yuling instructed. In reality, she simply wanted the secretary to lower her guard. When she was in school, she took a few languages as a minor. "Okay." The secretary quickened her footsteps and walked over to the man. She lowered her head and said something to him. Afterwards, the secretary turned around and waved at Xia Yuling. "President Xia, it's time." Xia Yuling nodded her head and walked over to greet them. Behind her, Imo Ting's men also quietly followed behind. "President Xia, please board the car." Outside the airport, the secretary pulled open the door of a Lincoln limousine and gestured for Xia Yuling to board. Xia Yuling glanced at the man and then at the secretary. She then happily boarded the limousine and sat down like nothing had happened. "President Xia, the farm we are heading to is about 2 hours away. You can get some rest first." "Okay." Xia Yuling nodded her head. Through the rearview mirror, she saw the car following behind them and pretended to close her eyes. Afterwards, the secretary spoke to the driver in Italian. "When do you plan to make your move?" "On the way to the farm, there is a three-way junction. The terrain is dangerous and there are many Eastern European crime syndicates that come here to rob and extort money. Give her a glass of wine. There's a tranquilizer in it." The secretary's eyes flashed with surprise, but she quickly suppressed it. With trembling hands, she poured Xia Yuling a glass of red wine while she was taking a nap. "President Xia, would you like some?" Xia Yuling slowly opened her eyes and nodded her head. "Pass it to me." Xia Yuling received the glass, took a sip and handed it back to the secretary. Then, she gradually closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. "That's enough." Seeing that she had fallen asleep, the secretary relaxed. "President Xia, please don't blame me. Miss Tang has been very kind to me." Xia Yuling remained unmoved. It seemed she had actually fainted from the tranquilizer. After testing Xia Yuling's reaction, the secretary turned to the driver and said, "Don't be too harsh on her. This is none of your business." The entire way, Xia Yuling showed no signs of waking up. After traveling for an hour, they finally arrived at the so-called dangerous three-way junction. At this time, there was already someone waiting at the crossroad. The driver stopped the Lincoln and wrapped Xia Yuling in a black bag. He then carried her out of the car and handed her to the receptionist. "Take care of her." As the secretary watched Xia Yuling being taken away, She nervously closed her eyes. Her palms were covered in cold sweat, and her entire body was trembling. Especially when he heard that. She really wanted to regret it, but when the words reached her throat, she couldn't say anything. It didn't take long before Xia Yuling was taken away by the black car. The driver returned to the car and said to his secretary, "You can call the police in a moment. He was robbed. He was kidnapped." Xia Yuling was indeed kidnapped. But before she could get far, she was stopped by another car. A dozen strong bodyguards immediately grabbed the people in the car. Not only did they take Xia Yuling away, but they also smashed up the car and took the people inside to the police station. "President Xia, are you okay?" With the help of a middle-aged man, Xia Yuling tore open the black bag and took a few deep breaths of fresh air before replying, "I'm fine." "What a close shave. You sure are brave to play along with us." The man handed her a glass of warm water. "I trust in my son-in-law." Thinking about it, Xia Yuling felt a lingering fear. But, under the circumstances, if she hadn't pretended to faint, the driver would have hit her in the car. That wouldn't have been worth it. "Don't worry, President Mo's arrangements are flawless. We will take you to your room to get some rest." "Okay." Xia Yuling nodded her head. She never expected that her secretary would actually do something like this. She was a traitor. As for Tang Xian, as soon as Xia Yuling was safe, she gave Tangning a phone call. Afterwards, she explained the situation to Elder Tang in detail. As soon as Elder Tang heard what she said, he flipped the table in front of him in anger. "That heartless animal deserves to die." "Grandfather, what's wrong?" Tang Jingxian burst through the door after hearing the commotion. Seeing Elder Tang's angry expression, he was a little surprised. It had been a long time since Elder Tang had been this angry. Elder Tang took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Seeing that his grandson was right in front of him, he immediately regained his composure. "Yuling, I'm glad you're fine. I want to see what that animal wants to do." "Father, I'm fine. Don't worry." Hearing the conversation between Elder Tang and Xia Yuling, Tang Jingxian could roughly guess what was going on. Who else would dare to cause trouble in this household? "Grandfather." Elder Tang put down his phone and held onto his chest as he waved at Tang Jingxian. How could the Tang family produce such a heartless person? Tang Jingxian immediately ran over to help Elder Tang up. Afterwards, he overheard a bit about Xia Yuling's business trip to Switzerland. "Grandfather, don't worry. With Sister 3 and brother-in-law around, no matter what that woman does, she will simply be shooting herself in the foot. Let's wait and see." Elder Tang took a deep breath. "I want to see what she plans to do to Tang Kor. I've wanted to get rid of her for a long time, yet she's pregnant." The phone call that Xia Yuling had gone missing came from her secretary. As soon as the housekeeper received the phone call, he was so shocked that he almost dropped it. Tang Xian was in the living room at the time. Seeing the shocked housekeeper, she immediately asked, "What happened?" The madam has been kidnapped and her whereabouts are currently unknown." "How did this happen?" Tang Xian immediately revealed a worried expression. "Don't tell grandfather about this in case he gets worried." In reality, Tang Xian had deliberately said this after hearing Elder Tang's footsteps. "Immediately contact the Swiss police and find out what happened. Tangkor is currently expanding. We can't do without Annie Xia." Elder Tang stood behind Tang Xian. Seeing her acting like this, he wanted to run over and slap her across the face. But he had no choice but to endure it. "Chairman." The housekeeper furrowed his brows as he looked at Elder Tang, who had appeared behind Tang Xian. "Grandfather." Tang Xian turned around and called out softly, "What's wrong with Yuling?" Chapter 497. It's nothing. It's just that they couldn't contact Annie Xia in Switzerland, so they called to ask. Tang Xian replied. "You tell him." Elder Tang knew Tang Xian's motive, so he directly asked the housekeeper. The housekeeper stared blankly at Tang Xian for a few seconds before replying in a serious tone. "Madam's secretary called. Madam was robbed and kidnapped. Her whereabouts are unknown." After hearing this, Elder Tang clearly took 2 steps back. How could this be? "Grandpa, don't worry. Maybe it's just fake news. Tang Xian immediately went up to support the old man and comforted him. Housekeeper, quick, contact the Swiss to confirm the news. Also, make sure Yuling's disappearance doesn't leak out. Elder Tang anxiously turned around and returned to the study room. It was obvious he wanted to know if he had any connections he could use to confirm Xia Yuling's whereabouts. As Tang Xian watched the old man leave, she could not help but sneer. You still want to find someone? That will never happen. In reality, if Tang Kor wanted to find out about Xia Yuling, there was no need for her to spread the news herself. Plus, the person that had been kidnapped was the CEO of a multinational perfume company. So, news of this would quickly spread throughout Switzerland. Soon, Tang Jingxian heard the news and rushed home. He barged into Elder Tang's study room. Grandfather, this? The old man waved his hand, indicating that he did not need to continue. But Grandpa Sheng lifted his head to look at Tang Jingxian with a meaningful look in his eyes. Although Tang Jingxian frowned, he still reacted. His tone became even more anxious. Grandpa, you can't just ignore Mom. Outside the door, Tang Xian was stunned for 2 seconds. After making sure there was nothing out of the ordinary, she grabbed her phone and knocked on the door before entering the study room. As soon as she saw the grandfather and granddaughter, she immediately handed the phone to Elder Tang. Grandfather, the higher-ups of Tang Kor just called. Elder Tang looked deeply at Tang Jingxian before receiving the phone from Tang Xian. What is it? Chairman, I heard that President Xiao was kidnapped, but what about our cooperation with Switzerland? Hearing the other party's tone, Elder Tang sneered. What? Yuling just got into trouble, and you guys are already jealous of her position? Let me tell you, the management rights belong to the Tang family. No one can take it away. Isn't that so? However, Switzerland has already given us a phone call. Because they want to avoid the news, they've already used the excuse that Tang Kor's representative didn't show up as an excuse to terminate their collaboration. We've suffered a huge loss. Plus, Tang Kor is such a big company, we can't do without a leader, right? The other party's tone became frivolous. For this reason, the board of directors has decided to hold a temporary meeting. Chairman, you should attend. Bastard! After hanging up the phone, Elder Tang trembled in anger. Yuling has just gotten into trouble, and these people are already trying to seize power. I'm not dead yet. Grandpa, don't be angry. Let's think of a way to find Annie Xia first before we go deal with Tang Kor. This time, Elder Tang was truly angered. He knew that although a lot of these people were tempted by Tang Xian, as longtime employees of Tang Kor, they were already disloyal to Tang Kor. So, this time, they were given an excuse and opportunity to rebel. Xiao Xian, go and calm the shareholders down. I'll go look for Xiao Ning. Okay, grandfather, I will definitely protect Tang Kor well. This was the promise that Tang Xian had been waiting for all this time. Go. Elder Tang waved his hand. Don't disappoint me this time, Elder Tang said with a deeper meaning. Don't worry. Tang Xian's lips curved upwards. After speaking, she turned and left the study room. At this time, Tang Jingxian finally spoke up. Grandpa, it's not time to pull in the net yet. Let her be happy, Elder Tang said with a deeper meaning. Elder Tang said with a deeper meaning. I want to see her appease the shareholders. Just when she thinks victory is in her grasp, I will give her a fatal blow. Then, Mom. Tang Jingxian had long treated Xia Yuling like his mother, so he had always referred to her as Mom. In this family, Tang Xian was the only person she referred to as Annie. With your sister 3 around, Tang Xian won't be able to escape her grasp. As soon as Elder Tang thought of the resourceful Tongning, a proud look appeared on his face. Of course, this time, Tongning was merely the one who suggested the plan. The true schemer was still behind her. That's good to hear. Tang Jingxian slowly relaxed. Meanwhile, at Hyatt Regency. According to reports, the woman who got into an accident in Switzerland this time is the current CEO of Tang Kor, Xia Yuling. At the same time, she is also the mother of the famous artist, Tongning. After seeing the news, Tongning turned off the TV and put down the remote in her hands. Of course, those that were unaware, like Long Jie, immediately rushed over to Hyatt Regency. However, all they saw was Tongning's calm expression. Aren't you worried? My mom is on a plane back home, Tongning explained as she sat back down on the sofa and looked at Long Jie with a smile. What do you mean? Long Jie was confused. After spending some time, Tongning explained Tang Xian's plan to Long Jie. In reality, her plan was to seize control of Tang Core. After hearing this, Long Jie came to a realization. If she goes to Tang Core to appease the shareholders now, what if she succeeds? This time, not only do we need to punish Tang Xian, we also need to find the shareholders that have ulterior motives towards my mother. So, let them fight amongst themselves. I prefer to watch a good show, Tongning replied calmly. She wanted Tang Xian to think that she had succeeded in taking back Tang Core. She wanted to show Tang Xian the true meaning of being unaware of the Oriole behind. Long Jie thought for a moment and finally understood Tongning's motive. So, she gave her a thumbs up. You are trying to make Tang Xian work so hard, yet end up with nothing? Since this is what she wants, I will definitely fulfill her wish. Tongning revealed a gentle smile. After all, she plotted against me and the baby in my stomach, as well as retreating from the entertainment industry. I want to make her pay, bit by bit. Although Tongning was pregnant, Long Jie didn't need to worry that her heart would soften. She was a vengeful person. This was Tongning. Since everything was planned by you, then I will wait to watch a good show. Hayes, what I don't understand is, why does Tang Xian always want to fight with you? Your IQs are obviously not on the same level. Some people are born with a lack of self-awareness, Tongning said as she rubbed her stomach. It seemed Tang Xian still had no idea that she was pregnant. She thought she was a treasure, but, in reality, all Elder Tang wanted was the Tang family child in Tang Xian's stomach. However, there were some truths that would no longer be interesting if they were revealed too early. This time, she was going to take over Tang Core and make Tang Xian's long-awaited wish come true. Chapter 498. At Tang Core, the board of directors held an emergency meeting. This time, Tang Xian reappeared in front of the shareholders, shocking them. It wasn't that they didn't know that Tang Xian had returned to Tang Core, but because Elder Tang had always placed her in an insignificant position, they did not pay too much attention to her. But, at this moment, she actually had a chance to make a comeback. Tang Xian knew that these people had never trusted her and had always thought that she was average. So, this time, she was going to prove her capabilities to these stubborn old people. I am here on behalf of my grandfather. If you have anything to say, please speak your mind. The board members looked at each other in dismay. In the end, a 40-something-year-old man standing to the right of Tang Xian straightened his suit jacket and said arrogantly, I just want to know when President Xia will be back. Tang Core is such a big conglomerate. It can't be left unattended, right? Tang Xian lowered her head and thought for a few seconds before she smiled. I don't know if Annie Xia is still alive. I hope everyone can give us some time. Time? Do you know how much we invested in the Switzerland project? If it's gone just like that, who is going to take responsibility? Big miss. Although we understand your difficulties, you still need to protect the interests of our shareholders, another elderly shareholder said as he crossed his arms. It's fine for the Tang family to hold the management rights. After all, the Tang family were the ones that built the company and hold the most shares. But you need to give us an explanation, right? If President Xia can't return, then the old chairman should step out and take charge. Grandfather hasn't been feeling well lately. The second miss is a doctor, so I can't force her. What about the third miss? Hasn't Tongning retreated from the industry? Letting her manage Tang Core is better than not having a leader. Tang Xian's eyes darkened. Just as she was about to say something, another shareholder suddenly spoke up. Hand Tang Core over to an actress? Are you guys joking? Tongning may be in the entertainment industry, but she has a high reputation in the industry. Plus, she treats people well. Isn't she one of the best in the Tang family? Don't say anymore. I will never accept an actress as the leader of Tang Core. What would that look like? Then who do you think should be in charge? Because of Tongning, a few shareholders' faces turned red with anger. From the bottom of their hearts, they looked down on the profession of acting. Not to mention, Tongning had been a model before. I wonder how many people he's slept with in the past. Isn't he bringing shame to Tangkor by becoming the leader of Tangkor? If that's the case, I hope that First Miss can take control of the situation. Someone suddenly changed the topic to Tang Xian. After Tang Xian heard it, she didn't expect it either. In reality, most of the people present knew what Tang Xian was capable of, but in front of her, they didn't say much. Tang Xian already knew what these people were thinking, so she gave a gentle smile and said with sincerity, I know I have a lot of shortcomings in the past and have disappointed everyone, but after so long, I've started from the bottom and gained a new understanding of Tangkor. No matter who takes over Tangkor, this is what I want to tell everyone. Support Tongning. Support the young Miss. Tongning, eldest Mississippi, from what I know, Tongning doesn't seem to have much interest in management. The chairman has approached her multiple times, but she has always told him that she doesn't want to be in meetings with a bunch of old men and that management isn't her interest. As soon as this director finished speaking, everyone stopped arguing. After all, many people at Tangkor were well aware of this. Tongning had rejected Elder Tang in the past. In fact, she had done it more than once. Since those people can't be counted on, what else is there to say? As long as the big miss is in charge of Tangkor, I can rest assured. The results of the discussion were obviously heading in the direction that Tang Xian wanted. But she remained calm and said, Thank you for your trust, but I have indeed made a mistake. Since it's so difficult to make a decision, let's vote. Yes, let's vote. After a unanimous decision, the board of directors decided to use the fairest method. Regarding this result, Tang Xian was confident. After all, she had already bribed a lot of people in secret. But, to her surprise, when the results of the vote were released, she and Tongning tied. You guys sure are enthusiastic about recommending Tongning. Unfortunately, she would rather bare her chest than take a single glance at Tangkor. Fellow directors, please don't be angry. The best thing to do is for grandfather to take charge. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint everyone. This time, Tang Xian spoke with a humble attitude. Grandfather has the right to make the decision. Tang Xian continued to argue with the directors. What's there to choose? Have any of you seen Tongning's capabilities? Does she think that just because she's good in the entertainment industry, she's good at management? If you guys insist on making Tongning the new manager, I think I will consider withdrawing my shares. After one round of voting, the issue did not seem to be resolved. They were still stuck on the issue of Tongning or Tang Xian. At this time, Elder Tang received a phone call. No matter how disrespectful the shareholders were, they had to endure the anger in their hearts and listen to the call. It has been confirmed that Yuling has been kidnapped in Switzerland, and her fate is currently unknown. The entire Tang family is currently trying their best to find her. So, tomorrow, I will be announcing the acting CEO. I'm sure no one will have any objections. Tang Xian lowered her head and sneered. She knew, apart from herself, who else could truly take charge of the Tang family. Tomorrow, I will get my granddaughter to hold a meeting with you. Granddaughter. But he did not mention which granddaughter it was. This made Tang Xian even more certain that Elder Tang was planning to return her to her original position. The shareholders seemed to have misinterpreted Elder Tang's words and thought he wanted Tang Xian to temporarily take over. So, they couldn't help but clap their hands. That's why those supermodels should step aside. To put it bluntly, Tongning is only suitable for men to play with. It's best if she never steps foot into Tangkor for the rest of her life. Watch your mouth when you speak, one of Tongning's defenders warned. They were already in a bad mood, yet they were now going to send Tang Xian back to her original position. Now that Tongning was being humiliated, how could they not be agitated? Since grandfather has made his decision, I will see everyone tomorrow. We don't know who we will see tomorrow. Are you the chairman's only granddaughter? Someone scoffed at Tang Xian before leaving. However, this comment hit right at Tang Xian's heart. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.